folks. Sam Seder here. This is the live broadcast of the Majority Report. And as you probably have heard, there's a bit of a YouTube apocalypse that has been going on. Many news and politics channels have lost their advertising because of an algorithm that Google has implemented as a function of ads showing up on hate-filled channels. Well, we got caught up in that, and it doesn't look like it's going to be resolved. So we need your help. You've probably heard from other channels that they're asking people to donate to a Patreon site. We are asking the same so that we can operate this YouTube feed without a cost to us. I mean, we don't look at YouTube as a huge revenue maker for us, but we need your help so that we're not losing money on it. So head over to our Patreon site. Here is the URL. We need your help. Just a couple of bucks, $2-3 a month would really help us out. Thanks so much and enjoy the show. Hi, folks.
People out there, we call them marching side by side, marching across the fields where a million fascists thought you're bound to lose. You fascists are bound to lose. The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, May 5th, 2017. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 4-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. It is indeed Casual Friday, folks. And joining us on the program, Cliff Schecter will be here. Larry Murphy will not be joining us for reasons I will talk about in a moment. Not that you were all anticipating Larry Murphy, but
I don't think anyone knew that.
I was.
I guess I was too.
Also on the program today, the Affordable Care Act repeal and replace. I don't even know what they call it, the ACHA. Passes in the House. This is a crap show, folks. Not this particular show, but this bill. And don't be so sure they won't pass something in the Senate. We will go through all of this bill to remind you just how bad it is, because if you've ever been motivated to do anything in terms of harassing your senators or, frankly, your House members, this should be it. Meanwhile, Attorney General from New York, Schneiderman, threatening to sue based upon a specific amendment that screws over New York, or helps John Faso upstate, I should say. Meanwhile, what happens next in the Senate, we will talk about that. And remember yesterday when Trump signed that so-called religious freedom executive order? And I was like,
great.
This sounds like BS.
Sounds like Saudi Arabia.
Turns out it was BS. There was nothing. It was he just signed a document that said some words that were meaningless.
Gotta win.
Gotta win. And Fox News woes, they're about to get much, much worse. All this and more on today's program. I think you got to turn down my microphone just a little bit, I have a feeling. Yeah, I think I think we're a little closer. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear with what's going on today. No, you don't have to.
You're about to go down.
This is it's important. People should know. Oh, that's good. Larry is, well, I'll get to Larry in a moment. But Matt is out of town. So Michael and Kelly are
Yes.
running the, you should really turn your microphone down a little bit too, actually. Michael and Kelly are running the board and the video. So we may have some technical issues. I have taken,
Bank on it.
I have taken like 3.5 Xanax.
Could you do this
So
every
I
day,
would-
actually?
Could you just lay off the mic just a little bit? Actually, you do got to turn it down just a little bit. It does. Just make sure that it's not hot coming out of that board. You see the green light that's going on to there? Just make sure we don't get too high there. So just a heads up. But so far, so good. Larry Murphy was going to be with us today, but and Larry is my friend. He plays Teddy on Bob's Burgers, and probably about another half a dozen voices in any given episode. Also very famous for his performance as Assy McGee in the self-entitled cartoon Assy McGee. And if you look up, I think it's still there on the top of my IDMB page, or IBMD, or IMDb, whatever that thing is. For a long time, my top credit was the douche from Assy McGee, which I was very proud of. But now I think, I don't know, he's got pushed down or something. I'm not sure.
I just want to interject for one moment
Yes.
to say that you didn't mention where Matt went, which is to an all-weekend rave.
Well, I mean, really? Was it an all-weekend rave? I thought he was just...
No.
Yes.
It's a music festival. I
It's
don't
an
know.
all-weekend
Oh,
rave.
okay. All right, so he's going to party.
Yeah, good for him.
But that's it. I didn't want to get too,
We don't
he
have
may
to
not
give
want
his
to. He may not want to share that.
geolocation.
Oh, well, that I already tweeted out. But the reason why I raised that Larry is not here, in addition to saying he'll join us later, or some in the future, he's here. He's not here because his kid has the mumps. Now his kid, Larry, does not live in 1920. Larry lives in Massachusetts, and the kid had been vaccinated for the mumps. But here's the thing about vaccinations. Their efficacy, I don't know, it depends on what the vaccination is not that high. Or I should say it's not 100%. And then it varies from there. Some kids still can get it. But that is the point of herd immunity. The point of herd immunity is if everybody gets vaccinated, the efficacy of each person's vaccination doesn't actually change, but it just means that there's a less chance that those that 1 out of whatever, I don't know, 100 or 200 that is more susceptible to the mumps, the vaccination doesn't necessarily work for them, is not exposed to it. But, Larry was upset because he says he knows a lot of people who are not getting their vaccinations in that area. And this story today in Minnesota, the state is suffering its worst measles outbreak in decades. And apparently part of it is that in the Somali community, not that there was anything they're particularly anti-vax, but they heard a lot of the anti-vax stuff and assumed, oh, I'm in America, I'm not susceptible to these diseases in the way that I might have been in Somalia, which is probably true in of itself, but it doesn't mean they don't exist. And it tells the story of a woman who was a Somali immigrant, but came, I think, when she was 15 or 16. And she had a sister who died of measles at age 3 in Somalia. When she came to this country, she thought, there's no way those diseases, exist here. I'm in America. Her 3-year-old boy and her 18-month-old girl have contracted measles. Her daughter was hospitalized for 4 nights and needed intravenous fluids and oxygen. The immunization rates plummeted. In Minnesota, and last month the first cases of measles appeared. Soon there was a full-blown outbreak. One of the starkest consequences of an intensifying anti-vaccine movement in the United States and around the world has gained traction, in part by targeting specific communities. And apparently, is it the case that maybe that guy Wakefield, who had been discredited, had several talks in the Somali community. Look, I understand why people are nervous about getting vaccines, because no one likes to see their child stuck with a needle. I don't even like to get a needle, frankly. And you see them injected. You don't know what it is because you're not a doctor. You're just watching them get stuck with a needle. But there is absolutely no evidence. In fact, there's evidence to the contrary that immunization causes autism, which apparently is the big fear in this instance. And, you talk to your doctor. If you're really worried about it, for whatever reason, you can ask your doctor, like, what's the extent I can spread this out? Maybe you can spread it out an extra, couple months or something. But you got to get your kids vaccinated. You got to do it. I mean, I understand, and I've talked about this in what people think is maybe a too nuanced way. I understand the fear, and I also understand why it's difficult in this country, because as a public policy matter, immunization keeps our populations and our children safe. Does that mean that there aren't side effects in small, in rare instances? Of course there are. There are side effects for everything. People can take, people can be allergic to penicillin. Of course. But as a matter of public policy, and even in a matter of keeping your children safe, get them vaccinated. So that next time, I don't have to have one of the guests can't come in because the kid's got mumps. But obviously, much bigger reason than that. No, you give vaccination. I mean, I think frankly, and I've done probably more reading about this and gone down wormholes more than I wanted to, in part because I've had an ongoing, Bobby Kennedy is one of those people who he will not identify as an anti-vaxxer, but he has certainly had issues. And I think one of the reasons, there's 2 reasons why. I think, I don't know the specifics in Bobby Kennedy's case, but, I only know this from dealing with him on Ring of Fire. But one, you heard stuff like what we heard at the lawyers' conference last week, right? I mean, where Remington was aware that people were going to die, and because they had a gun that fired on its own. But, we don't want to get too carried away with creating alarm because it would cost us profits, or the various drugs and whatnot. And so I think people who have worked in that world have a sense of just how far corporations will go to protect their profits. And I think it's always good to be skeptical of pharmaceutical companies and other companies, frankly, corporations. The other thing is that we do have a system in this country where immunizations are have a reduced liability, and that that in the event you are injured by an immunization, you go to a special court and there are payouts there, and it's not a terribly transparent process. And whenever you don't have transparent processes, of course, you get people who develop conspiracy theories around them. The reason why it's not transparent is because, immunizations only work if everybody gets immunized. So it's a tough situation. I understand why I emotionally understand why people are nervous about it at times. But I mean, if you look at the data, immunizations are very safe, and in fact, they're not just safe; they save lives, and they could be saving your kid's life. We're going to talk a lot more about the Healthcare Act when we get Cliff on the phone. But do you realize what day it is today, right? It's May. Isn't like Mother's Day is soon, right?
Yes.
When is it?
In 2 weeks.
Mother's Day is like soon. Yes.
Okay. This is perfect because I had no idea when Mother's Day is. Now it occurs to me it comes in spring. But I would have forgotten. But here's the beauty. I mean, to me, that is the beauty of Pro Flowers. Now, we just got a sample of bouquet from Pro Flowers. And, sadly, a box of chocolate that came in it, too. Which it took me about a half an hour to deal with, if you know what I'm saying. Delicious. But one of the nicest things you can do for somebody is give them flowers. It just is. People like them. I don't know why. For me personally, I find
I love it.
The floral smell sometimes gets a little much.
Get a little itchy in your eyes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
I'm
Does not
guessing you
surprise
didn't
me.
decorate your home. So when flowers are in it, it looks nice.
Yes, it's true. And this bouquet from Pro Flowers is really beautiful. They send 100 blooms for your mom, and it doesn't have to be for your mom. It can be for your wife, your grandmother, any mom. And you know what? I mean, I think I might even get some for my sister because she's an aunt and she comes over and she helps with the kids. And
One time, a boyfriend got them for me because I was a mother to my dog. I broke up with him.
But
yeah,
chump.
well, of course, yeah, you got to dump that guy
dump him.
immediately.
What a loser.
Listen to this. It comes with a free glass. So you get 100 blooms bouquet with a free glass vase for just $19.99 plus shipping and handling. And you can upgrade to a premium vase and include the gourmet chocolates for just $10 more. You get to keep the vase. It's a beautiful vase.
Yeah, you don't have to return it to the company.
I just like to
You got
say
keep the
vase. Well, I was really shocked when I opened up the flowers. I was like, they give you a vase too?
I like there you go. You're a vase guy. Not
I'm-
the flowers, but what they stay in.
I was
That
really
makes total
impressed,
sense.
actually, the vase. I was like, you say the vase?
Of
And the
course.
chocolates were delicious. You choose the delivery date you want for Pro Flowers, and they are guaranteed to arrive fresh and beautiful and stay that way for at least 7 days or your money back. The only way to get 100 blooms for mom with a free glass vase starting at $19.99 is to visit proflowers.com. And here's what you do. You visit proflowers.com, you click on the microphone in the top right corner, and use my code SEDER, S-E-D-E-R, S-E-D-E-R. That's my last name. That's proflowers.com and code SEDER when you click on the mic. This stunning bouquet sells out fast, so order today. Make it easy on yourself. Just order it now, pick the date, and it will show up then. And then you're done. That's what I like about it. And you do 3 or 4 of these things and you're done. You don't have to have it hanging over your head. That is proflowers.com. Click on the microphone, Cedar, S-E-D-E-R. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Cliff Schecter, and we'll be talking about this really a scary healthcare bill that passed in the House yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm gonna set my soul on fire. My heart beats low while the flames grow higher. Strike the match and then the truth is told. I'm gonna set my soul on fire. The devil made me a woman, I ain't no liar. Her eyes burn black like a lake of fire. She struck the match and then I sold my soul. For the black-haired girl from the lake of fire. I'm gonna set my soul on fire. My heart beats low while the flames grow higher. Strike the match and then I'll smoke this slow. I just set my soul on fire.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Casual Friday, and even though we're just running it just a little bit later than normal on a Casual Friday with Michael and Kelly operating the technical aspects of the program, it is it is the occasion in which, even though Matt is not here to play it, we play this song. It is Casual Friday, and even though we're just running it just a little
Cliff
bit later than
Schecter,
normal,
Libertas LLC,
Michael and
New
Kelly
Media,
operating
Public
the
Relations,
aspects
and
of
Strategy. You want any of these services? You know who you gotta see.
It is the occasion in which, even though Matt is not
Libertas
here, we
LLC.
play this song. Okay, put up his thing. So you up, Cliff? Can you hear me? Cliff?
Public and Strategy. You want any of these services? You
Cliff? All right, Cliff, hold on for 1 second. Cliff?
I'm hearing two different tracks. It's weird.
Something's still playing. Turn off this stuff.
I keep hearing the song playing, and I'm hearing you talking at the same time. Okay, song's been killed. That's good.
Are you good?
Now I can hear you. Yes, there were
Okay.
like two of you.
All right, how about
Yes.
now?
Now I hear you. Is this the live you?
Yes, this is the live me. All right, so Cliff, I don't know what happened there, but welcome to the program.
Now I'm hearing myself talk. Hey man, this is weird.
All right.
Okay.
you have YouTube playing anywhere, guys? No. Nobody has a YouTube on.
Wow, that's weird. Sam, are you there?
Yeah, hold on, Cliff.
Okay.
There's another feed that's going into him. Are you screening YouTube on this? No. Don't.
I'm not.
No tweeting during this. Don't look at your phones during this, okay? You need to concentrate on this shit. Just.
There's nothing happening.
Well, something's happening. We're getting a feed that's coming in here. He's sending it back to him.
It's not.
Put my mic up. I'm gonna ask him if he still hears it.
No. Cliff, you there?
I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can only hear one of you, which is very good.
All right, so you're not getting any feedback.
I'm not now at this moment, no.
Okay. All right, let's try this again. So, Cliff.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. Yesterday in the House, the ACHA passes, and it's a little bit scary, no?
Yeah, because we've gotten one step closer to their blowing up 1/6 of our economy. And they don't even seem, a lot of these guys don't even seem that concerned. And it sort of also, at the same time, blew up the myth of that you keep hearing from the media all the time. I've seen some smart people like Norm Ornstein and others on Twitter pointing this out, but they call anybody who's sort of, willing to entertain not doing that a moderate. Well, a lot of those so-called moderates voted for this thing. 14 of 23 who were in districts that Hillary Clinton won and the Republican congressional member won voted for this thing. And not all, some of these are rabid conservatives who shouldn't be there. Others at least are people who pretended to be more moderate. And yet, they've admitted things that about this, that the damage it's going to cause in states, the people with pre-existing conditions not being able to get insurance, prices going through the roof. If you have any number of 50 different, pre-existing conditions, alone the list, asthma, anxiety, all sorts of things that many people suffer from. Being raped or sexually assaulted now is a pre-existing condition. Of course, erectile dysfunction is not. You're okay. Shocking when you have the diversity of 50, 60, and 70-year-old white guys, maybe a few in their 80s, for some more diversity standing out there cheering this thing on. The sort of sheer stupidity of it, the heartlessness, that it's a game to these guys. They just wanted to win because they promised they would do it. One of them said that, could check it off his list. Said that to a reporter, I think maybe said it anonymously. Representative Chris Collins of New York went on TV and got caught and had to admit he's never even seen the bill and hasn't read it.
Well,
knows nothing about how the healthcare system was actually working, but just sort of assumes it'll be okay. Let me say one more thing. And final one, Tom Cole of Oklahoma, who voted for it and said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot. There are things in it that don't make sense, but we assume it'll come back from the Senate in much different form. We just need to vote on something." And these are people that are actually in positions of power in our country.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. I think your point is well taken about the idea of the moderate, and they do know what's in this bill because it is basically the same bill that they tried to pass the last month, and the only difference is, as far as we can tell at this point, it's actually there's two differences that make it significantly worse. Well, I guess one is an $8 billion literally drop in the bucket. We've talked about risk pools in the past. You need about $25 billion a year to actually get risk pools to function at the level that we are now in terms of if that's how you're going to serve people with pre-existing conditions and be able to offer them a 68% subsidy on the premiums. So you're still looking at like at least $10,000 a year, but you'd need $25 billion a year for these risk pools. The other thing that this does is that it provides a waiver, and this is going to be this is what's going to make this even worse than pre Affordable Care Act. The waiver allows states to basically say you don't need those essential benefits. You don't need to have lifetime. You don't need to. We're not going to prohibit lifetime caps, as you said, or annual caps.
Mm-hmm.
But big employers, because of changes in the federal law after the Affordable Care Act took place, where it was basically like, because the Affordable Care Act created a basement floor for the quality of insurance to actually qualify as health insurance, the federal government now basically said you can shop as a big employer state to state because there may be idiosyncrasies that you prefer that are allowed in another state as opposed to your state. And now that we've created a baseline, nobody can fall through that baseline, so it doesn't matter. Well, now it's going to matter, because if I'm a big employer and I'm in New York or California or any other state in the country, and let's say, I don't know, Alabama has a waiver where we don't have to provide any essential benefits, there can be lifetime and annual caps and whatnot, I, as that big employer, can say I'm going to abide by those states' changes. And that makes it. That means there's no state protection, regardless of what kind of state.
Let's go a step worse and cover you guys where you live, which is in New York and California. The subsidies that they're providing as part of their Trump Care can only be used on plans that do not provide abortion services. California and New York require all plans to provide abortion services. So no subsidies can be used by anybody living in the states of California or New York, which somebody might want to tell those 7 or so Republican California members of Congress, many of whom are in swing districts, and the 4 or 5 ones from New York who voted for this piece of crap. So you're being discriminated against actively by living in New York or California. And one might believe there aren't that many Republicans. There's a good dozen congressional Republicans who voted for this knowing that.
People should also know.
I just don't have to see this isn't a disaster for them.
Well, look, it may be a political disaster for them, but it's going to be an actual disaster for the rest of the country, because
that's a bigger deal, yeah.
Prior to Obamacare, Medicaid was a little bit smaller than it is today. Today, Medicare serves 74 million people. Maybe they're living in poverty, maybe they're disabled, maybe they're elderly. The Affordable Care Act expanded the Medicaid, I should say, roles. But what this will also, this will block grant Medicaid. So it starts by cutting $880 billion over 10 years, which is 1/4 of the budget of Medicaid. 1/4 of the budget of Medicaid is cut on day one. And then, because it's block granted to states, they don't actually have to use it for Medicaid as we know it now. They can siphon off this money and use it in different ways. This is going to affect special ed. This is going to affect addiction services. Special
ed gets screwed. Veterans are going to lose some of their, I'm trying to remember if it was subsidies or tax breaks, a big number of them for this. I mean, there's really no group that's left out that doesn't get screwed by this.
We're going to lose the 10 essential benefits for the most part. It's conceivable. I guess it's conceivable. It's just going to break the insurance markets. But the 10 essential benefits that we get, those are basically gone via waiver for, I don't know what percentage of the country it'll be. And then you could actually be in New York and not get those again because your large-scale employer may say, like, well, we're just going to go by Alabama's rules, and they don't require the 10 essential health benefits: ambulatory care, emergency
Yeah.
service, hospitalization, maternity. A lot of people won't have maternity coverage anymore. Mental health, like we said, rehabilitative and prescription drugs. There's a whole myriad of things that go down the tubes. I mean, we forgot how, or at least I did, how disastrous this bill was because they didn't release the text before the second go round. It hasn't been scored by the CBO yet, but we recall.
It's weird because I remember them once complaining about those kinds of things.
Right. I mean, that hypocrisy stuff is, I guess it's worth noting, but
yeah.
that's the way it happened. But just a
That's
reminder.
their bread and butter. Yeah.
On the last score it got with the CBO, there was a $3 billion savings to Social Security. Now, why might there be a $3 billion savings to Social Security because of
People die.
Yeah.
That's why. That literally, because these are, remember Sarah Palin's death panels? You got them, kids. Except for the Republicans are the ones that voted for them.
Social Security will actually save $3 billion in the future because the rate of death, the number of people who will live to the age of 65 or to age 70 or 75 will decline because they don't have health care. I mean, how effed up is that? How do you have, and this is from the last CBO score. And frankly, I'd be surprised if that number doesn't go up in the next CBO score for this specific bill. How do you read that? And certainly, they read that part of the bill. Maybe they didn't, but how do you read that and vote for this bill? How do you do that?
I don't know, because I couldn't. So you have to be sort of an amoral cretin to do it. And I guess that describes 217 people in the House of Representatives. I mean, seriously, I don't know how you can read this. And I don't know how you can do this morally. I don't know how you can do it policy-wise. I don't know how you can do it politically. I mean, there's so many stupid things about this whole effort and what these guys just did. And yeah, if this stuff does go through, it will be disastrous. Obviously, the big question is, what will the U.S. Senate do?
Right.
There's no way they'll get to 60 with any of this. So will they get rid of the filibuster for this? Who knows? We've seen them do it for the Supreme Court, so I certainly could see them doing it on this. Will Susan Collins and Dean Heller, who's up next year in Nevada, and a couple of the other Republicans who are potentially vulnerable, will they do it? Good question, because I think they would be kissing their careers goodbye. Maybe they're still willing to do that. So the question is, can most of this stuff pass in the Senate? I'd say as an uphill battle, but people need to keep fighting because you never know.
Now, aren't they doing this under reconciliation? So all they need is 50 plus one, is my understanding.
I think, though, my understanding was for some of the changes they wanted to do to it, if they just stick to the number stuff, but if any changes to language and those kinds of things, they will need to get to 60.
Is that right?
I was reading something of that sort. I will fully admit I'm not a parliamentarian, never worked in the House, and don't understand, or the Senate, and I don't understand this stuff fully. But at least from what I was reading from, I don't remember who it was, somebody who theoretically knows something about this, that for some of the things they want to do, they'll need 60. Some they can do with 51.
Interesting. The bottom line is I'm not convinced. I mean, this is what scares me, right? They can pass whatever they want to pass in the Senate. I mean, we're hearing all of these, and particularly people like maybe like Collins and Flake, and frankly, most of the senators are saying like we were going to start with a clean slate, because what happens is once this bill goes to the Senate, they get to craft their own, and they could basically make up an entirely different bill. And if they pass it, what happens is you get a conference between leaders from the House and leaders from the Senate, and they hammer out the details of a bill, and those bills go back to the respective houses. And as far as I know, at that point cannot be amended, and there's a vote on those. My understanding on this is that they're doing it via reconciliation in the Senate. But like we say, it doesn't have to be the same bill. But here's what scares me. The moderates, the so-called moderates in the whatever, the Tuesday group or whatever they call themselves, they've already taken this vote in the House. They've already paid the price, right? They can't. The idea that they would flip-flop, they know they're still going to pay a political price. The Freedom Caucus, even if the bill comes back and it's not quite as draconian as this one, they also can feel like we won. I can't control the Senate. I'm going to blame the Senate. I mean, it seems to me that if Ted Cruz and Rand Paul sign on to this, you're going to have the Freedom Caucus. And then anything else that comes out of the Senate, if it passes, is going to be okay with the rest of them, because they're looking at what, for a Republican lawmaker is basically the reason they exist. This is a $1 trillion, over a certain period of time tax cut. I mean, this is an expansive tax cut primarily focused on people making over $250,000 a year.
Yeah. That is kind of their reason for being. I mean, it is the love that they're not speaking. Well, actually, it speaks its name all the time. It is why they exist. I mean, I am convinced they're going to try to do something in some form or fashion of this. There's no doubt. But I think some of the worst parts of this will be very hard to get through the Senate. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, there would be, I would imagine there would be a lot of concern. I mean, even, Lindsey Graham was like, I have a problem with it as it is now. But, it's going to be a different bill. I mean, that's the thing, is that we just don't know what's going to be in conference. And that's what, the idea that they would be able to pass something so heinous out of the Republican House, I think is what surprised me. Like, I thought if there was going to be if the bill was going to reflect anything, it would have been contrary to what the Freedom Caucus wanted. But the Freedom Caucus drove this bus.
They did. And they believed in the end, and I guess in this you have to give them credit, that they could be tougher than the sort of so-called moderates in their party, what's called the mainstream conservatives, maybe 3 or 4 actual moderate-ish people mixed in. And they proved themselves right. But again, so often in the past, it's been going on for years now. I mean, I remember it happening when George W. Bush was elected, and everyone said, oh, don't worry, the moderates in the Senate will save us. And, or the moderates, in the House or the Senate will save us. And they do on some things. I mean, there's no doubt that some crazy stuff doesn't get through. But when it comes to some of these kinds of things, they fold. Certainly, it's more often been with things like Supreme Court nominations and others that are clearly inappropriate. But, this proved that even on something as big as this, I mean, this for them, I will say, is even sort of a step beyond what they've done before. And that so many members of this, whatever it is, Tuesday group or Main Street Coalition, or people kind of, pass themselves off as not crazy, were willing to vote for this thing. It just shows, I mean, how pathetic. I mean, I have to believe they honestly don't think they'll get credit for that, and it will never go anywhere. However, when you're dumb enough to go outside and sort of start celebrating together, that creates some nice imagery for attack ads.
Well,
I
think you're right about this. I think a lot of those people in that Tuesday group or whatever it is, I think they think, okay, this is going to go to the Senate and it's going to die. But I wonder. I mean, I really do wonder if that's the case, because, the Senate had to be thinking, like, there's no way the moderates in the House are going to pass this. There's this sort of, it seems to me, we're seeing a similar dynamic to what we saw almost in the Republican primaries, right? Like, hey,
yeah, exactly.
You be the guy to take out Trump. No, because I'm not going to do it. I'm afraid. We're just going to assume somebody else is going to do it, and that's what's
funny.
Really
I was thinking that exact metaphor in my head. You know what I mean? It's like, where have we heard this before?
They're all sitting there hoping that the other guy is going to be the one to pull the plug on it, and they're all too afraid. They're too afraid of their base voters because that's all it is, right? I mean, Al Franken made the point the other day, I guess, on television. More people believe that ghosts exist than support this bill in this country. 18% of Americans believe they've seen a ghost. 17%
And
support
16 or
this bill.
17, yeah. And like 56% oppose. So it's not even like there's like, oh my God, there's so many. I mean, there's a decent number of undecideds, but over a majority are opposed to it. So really, again, it does somewhat come down to gerrymandering. But it comes down to a lot. It comes down to gerrymandering, their kind of arrogance about that, their arrogance that they'll be able to, that they'll have more, dirty Koch brother type money flow into their districts so that they can mitigate the damage from this. But, I don't know. Let's see what happens. I mean, there was a hell of a reaction to when, to what happened to people who voted, the Democrats after voting for Obamacare because it was so demonized and people didn't actually know the truth about it. Here, people actually do know the truth about this. It's been pretty widely out there. And people are a lot more engaged than they were in the past. I don't know which way it's going to happen. Again, we're in all sorts of uncharted territory in many ways. We have been for, since November. But I do think that that it'll be interesting to see what the Senate tries to do to grapple with this, and then what happens to these people. Because I have a feeling if they've been already hearing from voters in their districts, not one of these guys are going or gals are going to a constituent meeting. They're going to be ducking and hiding in their districts for the next year and a half.
I think of all the, they're all going on vacation starting tomorrow, I guess. And I think there's only out of like the 200 and some odd Republican Congress people, there are only 7 of them are having town halls.
Good luck to them, even.
And in the less than 24 hours that the vote was taken, I think Daily Kos has raised, I think, about $750,000 at this point, maybe more. And there's
for like
Indivisible and
challengers.
Swing Left,
Yeah.
and there's literally been, I think, a couple $1 million raised against it. Now, look, you and I know that's not a huge amount of money when you're talking about the Koch brothers' money, but I think it's indicative of just sort of like of how attuned people are. And I mean, this makes Rob Quist's race in Montana and John Ossoff's race in Georgia, that much more important. And John Ossoff had go ahead.
Oh no, I would just say quickly, and interesting to see what these races are going to become referenda on this, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they dominate this race and what these Republicans do to try to defend what they just did.
The first thing that literally seconds after the vote, Quist in Montana, tweeted about how he would vote against this in the Senate, and I don't know if Karen Handel has come out and said anything about the ACHA, but I would imagine she is wishing that they had waited to take this vote.
That's right. And they defunded Planned Parenthood in there, which can just keep that issue alive for her. Considering she's one of the original Planned Parenthood defunders from back in the day at Komen.
Yes. She's the one who destroyed the Komen Foundation in that when they tried to cut Planned Parenthood funding. Also just had what I would consider to be a rather unfortunate ad. Apparently, this was his position, but it was a lot of deficit hawkery stuff, which, I suppose. I suppose it could be expected in a district like that, but I really find it hard to believe that there are a lot of voters. I mean, it's one thing to have that position when pressed, but to think that, like, I'm going to cut an ad based on it, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's Georgia or 1997. He's 6 he's living in. But either way, if Ossoff wins, that could be the thing that ends up killing this bill if he turns that race into this because they're more or less even at this point, right? And the Senate is going to take their time. They're going to start from scratch. So they're going to try and, it's going to take them a month to even get a bill. I would bet. I don't even think this is going to be voted on until the end of the year, and it could, that could, if John Ossoff wins in Georgia, that's going to make it a lot harder, I think, for people to vote for that reconciliation, for that conference bill, if there is one.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, also Quist in Montana would be perhaps an even bigger deal. Yeah, I mean, I think those signals are already out there, because even before this thing, we were seeing this in plenty of elections. So, I mean, you're seeing where the energy is right now, and it's on the left. You know what I mean? So, I mean, these guys, I don't know, they think they're going to get away with this. Clearly, there must be a calculation that they have that where they think everything's going to be okay that I'm not seeing. But I mean, I think things are already looking sort of dire enough for plenty of Republicans in plenty of districts, and I think they just added to that. I mean, I just when you can literally sit there and do calculations on kind of like what you did with Social Security and be like, they're planning on saving money by letting people die. I mean, these are pretty easy things to explain to people. This isn't all that hard in the end, and I mean, you just every time you look at this bill again, you find, as you were pointing out, an attack on special education or veterans, I mean, there's so many crappy parts of this bill. So, I don't know, man. They're crazy.
Well,
kind of known that for a while, but
this is, I mean, it's surprising, and but at the same time, I think a lot of these, I think we're going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if we see, people resign or announce their resignation. Like I don't, like the kind of pressure that like a Susan Collins is going to get to vote for this because of the tax cuts, right? I mean, this is why you go to Washington if you're a Republican. It is to cut the taxes of the wealthy. I mean, this is like ideologically what you're interested in. It is what your funders are interested in almost exclusively. Granted, there's probably, Foster Freeze wants to have chastity belts on, and to women until they're married or whatnot. But a lot of these people, at the end of the day,
at least the first year after marriage, too, to be safe,
their perspective is tax cuts first, and then most of the other things that we're interested in fall in line if necessary. And then of course the deregulation and whatnot. But in terms of big legislative achievements, and make no mistake about it, folks, this is just a huge tax cut. There's nothing in here that really purports to help anybody. I mean, I guess they can say this is going to make health insurance more affordable, and it probably will.
They can say it.
Well, it probably will for some small subset of Americans, but it won't be insurance that's going to help them if they need it. If you're fortunate enough to not be someone who ever has an extended period of stay in the hospital, and you're 35 years old, and it just so happens that you get into your 60s, you get on Medicare, and then you get hit by a bus, and you're just gone immediately, or you fall off a cliff, and this is going to be a good deal for you because you're never going to need any health care. But that's not.
But as Representative Mo Brooks said, that's the life. That's how life works out. If you have a pre-existing condition, it's your fault. So clearly, by the behavior you've chosen, is 100% determined whether you have any issue or not that will allow you to be covered or not. It's your fault.
It really is stunning, and people have to get out. I mean, there's, I think, like I said at the top, there are three different sort of mechanisms that are attempting to raise money specifically on this. There's an Act Blue page, but I believe that is for all the districts with Republicans who voted yes. Daily Kos has one for Republicans, and this is much more targeted, and in some respects, I like that one, or the swing left one, where districts where someone voted yes for this bill and where less than 50% went for Trump. I mean, taking out the most vulnerable Republicans. And,
Yep.
you know, Nate Silver says that this increases the percentages of a wave. I mean, he went back, I think, to 94 and 2006 and has actually put, like, you know, this could be worth 6 points. Something like this could be worth 6 points across the board. It's
And being that they're already down by about sort of 6 or 7 in the generic polling, that would be kind of huge.
Yeah, I mean, people got to keep in mind we're still a year and a half away from 2018. A, B, the models that we have had up to this point have not been terribly effective in this era, right? I mean, it was all the models that were set up that predicted Hillary Clinton winning big, and we really just don't know. Also, we now are dealing with not just since 2010, but really in the past 4 years, we're dealing with like these new, highly sophisticatedly gerrymandered districts. So this is all, political science is not as it's not a sure bet as it was before. Not that it was ever a completely sure bet, but I mean, there's a lot of reason to believe that the political science models are off, and so who knows? I mean, this is very scary stuff. I'm very, very concerned about this because I thought they might be able to pass a bill out of the House, but I thought it would be the conservative, the Freedom Caucus people who would be mad about it, and that's not what's happening.
Well, I will say again, we can't know until we get closer. As you said, it's been a long time, and that's why it'll be more interesting to see first what happens in the Quist and Ossoff races, but even in other races. I mean, there've been numerous sort of even on more local races that have gone on around different states. I mean, we had a mayor's race here on Tuesday, and full disclosure, I worked for the challenger, who is a progressive African-American woman. And she was in a shock to everybody. This is a primary. There are more than 2 people. So now go to a general where the top 2 will go. And she won by 11 points.
That was for your full disclosure that you work for it. But she won by 11 points?
Yeah, in the primary. So there were 3 people in the primary, and they whittle it down in the primary to 2. This is the incumbent who won pretty handily in 2013. He's a Democrat also, but a more conservative one who is more quote unquote pro-business and is anti-choice. And she, shocking the world, was outspent by a good 10 or 12 or 14 to 1 and still won by 11 points in the primary. So now
Cliffy,
the general.
you're going to get one of these.
Wow, I didn't know the shofar would play for it.
Well, good for you. I think you earned a shofar.
I appreciate it. I'm just making that point, which is that's a race I happen to know something about. I'm sure there's races that are going on like this all over the country. I remember that state Senate race that happened in Delaware.
Lincoln, Nebraska, apparently, before we get to that mayor's race in Omaha, Lincoln, Nebraska, that's the city council. We saw I think it was in Mississippi, we had I think it was Mississippi. We talked about this yesterday on the program. I mean, you're hearing these type of stories, but it's hard to know. When you hear these type of stories, are these representative of something, or are they simply people who are looking for these types of stories to tell because it's dark days.
Well, but that's why I brought the one up here, Sam. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's because I know more about that one and the turnout here. Normally, where there's a much heavier turnout among what you'd expect, white men, where they're still doing calculations on this, but turnout in certain key areas, African-American neighborhoods and others, it was through the roof, much higher than it normally is.
That's a good sign.
so there does seem to be a story here that's going on in a variety of places where, groups of people that have not as often, single younger women, minorities, other groups that are disproportionately progressive, but also don't always turn out as often. Their turnout is spiking in a huge way. And that's been, so I don't know. I mean, maybe we're looking into it. Maybe we are trying to sort of piece together something that's not there. But that race in Kansas, seemed to be saying something, as well as the race in California, and where 20 points dropped off on the Republican side. It happened in the primary or initial race for Ossoff. And I've seen it in some local races. I really do think there is something going on, and I don't think this bill is going to be helpful to them. I think it's only, as Nate Silver is saying, and Charlie Cook, the Cook Report just rated 20 more House seats as moving in the Democratic direction. Every single one that changed moved in a Democratic direction.
I mean, what's interesting about this is that, and we've said this before about this special election in Georgia. And again, put aside for the moment that Ossoff is not going to be our favorite Democrat in the House if he wins. But this was a district, but Tom Price was never our favorite Democrat in the House either, nor was Newt Gingrich, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But these stories, I mean, we've talked, you and I have probably talked about special elections over the course of like 12 years, I would say 15 years close to now. Yeah. But these stories actually will have an impact on their voting. I mean, Matt, who apparently the rave has not started yet, IMs me that Ilana Ross Lighton, who's
resigned, who's retiring.
Who's retired? Oh, yeah, I guess he is partying. It's just that's the computer that Michael's. I was like, wow, Michael. I mean, Matt's really more engaged in the show. That he's not here.
I should have let him take that credit.
But she voted against it. So, she's on her way out, and she just, realized, like, I have to live in my town, and I don't want to be walking down the street and have all these, because let's remember, she's in Miami, right?
Yep.
The thing that people forget about Medicaid, and we're talking about cutting 1/4 of Medicaid and then block granting it, which means that the things that people are eligible to spend their Medicaid on now may not be there in the future. A huge percentage of Medicaid recipients, and I don't know if it's like, I do know this, 2/3 of the people who are on nursing homes are there and are being paid for by Medicaid.
Right.
And so,
exactly right.
if you're a lawmaker from Florida, you don't want to be walking down the street, I think, now that you're out of office and having people come up to you and saying, like, why is my grandmother or my mother or I been thrown out of my nursing home because we don't have any money for it because of Medicaid changes.
Right. Doesn't sound like a fun thing to have to live with, and that's because it's interesting. You're exactly right. That has to be the reason. It's not political because she's done, and she's in a district Hillary Clinton won by 20 points, and the only reason she's held on is she's one of the most moderate Republicans, and she's and she's a longtime incumbent, and so she's gone against the tide and been able to hold on there. And almost definitively a Democrat will win that seat. And so it's not political because she's leaving based on the fact that she has to live there.
Right. I mean, and I think that was probably her decision as to why she resigned. She's like, why she resigned? She doesn't want to walk around the house and have people there hate her.
Right. Which is interesting because, and I would say this, I know we have to go, but that's why I think the next couple of months are going to be incredibly interesting, especially if Quist either comes close or wins, and if Ossoff wins, I think you should expect to see at least a half dozen to a dozen more like her choose also to retire into solitude.
Well,
leave the house.
One can only hope. All right. Well, Cliff, I appreciate it. Thanks for putting up with a little tech difficulties early on. And
it happens, man.
Of course. And we will talk to you again next week. And I think we'll have, obviously, there won't be any action that have taken place in the Senate since then, but we probably will know the CBO numbers. And we will probably be talking about, hopefully, how people are going to those few town halls that Republicans are having. I mean, you know, I
Maybe there should be a Majority Report sponsored trip to one of them.
I was actually just like literally as you were saying that, I was just thinking like, I want to get in a car right now and park out in front of John Fasso's house. And I mean, I saw a clip last night on Maddow. In fact, she had the woman on. And John Faso, of course, is my congressman up in the 19th district where I still vote.
Right.
And it was a really, I mean, just gut wrenching. And apparently, it's on the Indivisible the Indivisible site. I think it's on there. A woman sees Faso. You can't see the woman really because it's being shot from behind her, but you can see Faso. And Faso is the one who beat Zephyr Teachout in the 19th district with a lot of Robert Mercer money, money. And the woman says, John, I went to high school with your wife. And like I think she said even maybe something to the effect like I did daycare for your kids. And he's like, oh, that's great. And she goes, please tell me you're not going to vote for this. I have a brain tumor. And if it weren't for, I guess Medicaid, I'd be dead now. And the expansion of Medicaid. And he was like, yeah, don't worry. I'll take care of you. Ba, 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 ba. Hugs her multiple times. And then votes for this piece of garbage, which is actually in New York. It's even worse when it comes to Medicaid because he wanted to, his calculation was we could save property taxes in the counties I represent by offloading some of the Medicaid costs out of the county system. This is known as the Collins, I think it's the Collins Faso Amendment, where we can offload the costs from the counties to the state and put the pressure on the state. Now, that may not, New York State may step up and deal with it, but it's that craven of a vote for this guy. And I don't know. I find it just shocking. I really do. I mean,
they're just, I mean, you can't get past. They're just reprehensible people. So, it's up to us, all of us, especially on shows like this, to keep reminding people of that for a long time now.
Yeah.
For the next 16, 18 months.
Yeah, people have to stay
I'm sure
engaged.
they'll show their colors again and again, who they are. All right.
All right. Well, Cliffy, we'll talk to you next week.
Great job on your election. Not your election, but the election. Talk to you later.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye, Kelly.
Bye.
I watched that footage last night of John Faso, and I was like,
what would you do if you go sit outside? You gonna go punch him or what?
I'll
go with you. We'll do a stakeout. I'll go punch him.
Antagonize him to get him to punch me.
I'll get him to punch me.
Well, all right.
You have kids and stuff. I can go to jail. I don't care.
Well, I'm not going to plan a crime right now on air. I hope Zephyr Teachout either runs again or
maybe the other guy. Maybe the guy that she defeated in the primary should run again.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he was good too, but my understanding is that there needs to be strength from across the river up there.
I see.
And
they really hugged her and told her that she'd be okay, huh?
Oh yeah, I mean it's crazy. We got to find that video. We'll play it maybe the other day. But in the meantime, let's play a couple other videos before we go to. Well, let's go to the fun half now, I guess. Why are you looking so panicked?
I'm not panicked. I'm just a little scared. It's fine.
That's all right. Well, we'll go to the fun
Better
half.
if I'm scared, because then I'd be
Now
on
we
my
get some,
toes.
All right. So, folks, just a reminder, it is your support that makes this show possible. We cannot do it without you. I should say this. Last night I went and I heard a very interesting talk by a politician who's involved on the state level. And he had just it was sort of a casual thing, but he has this idea about what's really important, that state government is really a crucial going forward, and particularly taking back state legislatures, which I think, we've talked about on this program because of those 2020 census, and that there is you can have an outsized impact on a state Senate race as a group of people. So, I mean, it's something that I'm going to look into. People have, on this program, we have we're not Daily Co's size site group of people, but we do have a lot of people heavily involved and aware of what's going on, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to, have some actual measurable impact over the course of the next 3 years, where we could impact the outcome of maybe some state Senate races. And there's a lot, it turns out, a lot of states around the country where there's a 1 or 2 person difference in control as to who would control the state. And if you control the state houses going into 2020, you then have control of the redistricting process. And that is hugely important. So we'll talk more about that in the near future. But in the nearest of futures, we're going to go to the fun half, and I'm going to ask you, if you do have the means to become a member of the Majority Report, please do. If you don't have the means and you still want the bonus time that we give virtually every day, I don't even know why I say virtually, but I'm trying to cover myself just in case, like, one day we have to go.
Is that really what's going on?
Yeah.
I thought you always say virtually kind of the way Biden says literally.
Well,
it's a filler for you. It's fine.
It's not filler. I mean, I honestly...
You really are trying to cover yourself.
It's my hedge. Because I would hate for someone to say, like, you said every day, and I've noticed 3 days in 2015 where you left early.
Well, I guess, no, I mean, even... There have been days, actually, when literally everyone has left early and I've, like, finished the show, or old Matt finished the show. But other than a vacation, there has never been a time where there has not been a second half. Literally.
Like, even that time where Saul got locked in the
Finished the show for you.
Wait, what?
And Matt wasn't even there.
Saul got locked in
Matt
what?
wasn't even around. That was literally like you.
Oh, yeah, you were doing the board that day.
I did the whole...
How did you do that?
I did fine. Just like this time. That problem we should figure out, because that wasn't on my end.
It might have been me.
I think
know.
you were playing. I think you were playing the YouTube, and it was coming back in.
Maybe.
All right, are we ready?
No.
Well,
fun half?
I shut down one of the
Fair Trade
browsers.
Cup. JustCoffee.coop. Fair Trade Coffee, tea or chocolate. Use the coupon code Majority, get 10% off. And also, if you buy your crap from Amazon, buy it through our links.
Jet.
Or andjet.com too, at majorityreportkickback.com. 646-257-3920. We'll take your phone calls. We'll be right back after this. Bye.
So we take one. La poupée qui fait non. Fuck off.
I give her my love, she says no, no, no. I give says no, 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 no. 'Cause you're only a friend to me. Only a brother to me. She's a pretty little dog who says no, 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 no. Just a little dog, and she knows I love her so. If I ask her to walk with me, she shakes her head at me. She's a pretty little dog who says no, 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 no. Over that time through, she says no, 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 no. If I ask her to walk with me, why can't she ever say we? She says you're only a friend to me. Only a brother to me. She's a pretty little dog. She says no, 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 no. Over that time through, she says no, 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 no. If I ask her to walk with me, I know she'll never say we. She'll say no, 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 no. She'll say no, 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 no. She'll say no, 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 no.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen.
Best version, I think.
Really?
I like the Birds version. I do. But I don't keep track of all the other ones that Matt plays. Some of them are pretty good.
So I sent this clip to Indie Mike
Oh,
because Indie Mike is, as you know, he's not a conservative. He listens to both sides. He will listen on one hand to what Ann Coulter says, and on the other hand, he'll listen to what Bill Hemmer has to say.
How is that possible?
How is that possible? What does that mean?
That someone would listen to what Ann Coulter has to say.
Sadly, that's
He's like
that
me.
describes a huge portion of our society.
I keep it balanced. Cornel West and Karl Marx.
But with that said, he likes to think it's all about process for him. He pretends
Really?
it's like process, and so he's like, always Nancy Pelosi. We didn't know what was in the. You're gonna have to pass it to know what's in it.
Oh, I remembered because we had him on.
And yes, Indy Mike would say this over and over again. Now, if you actually look in the context of what she was saying, she was talking about what the implications would be. Like in the same way that we're not going to know fully the implications of any bill until you actually pass it and start to implement it, because there's always unintended consequences. Sometimes they're better. There was people didn't know necessarily that if you took lead out of unleaded gasoline, that it might have an impact on crime. But that could have been one of the unintended consequences of that policy. And however, with that said, we heard over and over and over again. In fact, we heard it from Paul Ryan. The idea that you would rush a bill, the idea that you wouldn't fully read a bill, the idea that you wouldn't get it scored by the CBO, which
And the
actually the
length of the
Democrats
bill.
never did. And
Remember
the
the
length,
length?
yes. These were all capital offenses. And but fortunately, we've stopped killing people for it, because here's Chris Collins on with Wolf Blitzer, basically conceding that, no, he never read the bill.
Actual legislation, the language in this bill, including the 2 amendments that were added to it, we only saw that language in the past 24 hours. Did you actually sit down and read the entire bill plus all of the amendments?
I will fully admit, Wolf, I did not, but I can also assure you my staff did. We have to rely on our staff. I had many meetings within Energy and Commerce with the chairman of Energy and Commerce as we discussed how this plan will affect Americans. I'm very comfortable that we've got a solution to the disaster called Obamacare, where just today we heard 94 out of 99 counties in Iowa will not have any insurance next year, and we heard today that Aetna pulled out of the individual market in Virginia.
This legislation affects a fifth of the U.S. economy and millions of Americans. Don't you think it was important to actually sit down and read the language of this bill?
You know, I have to rely on my staff, and I could probably tell you that I read every word, and I wouldn't be telling you the truth, nor would any other member. We rely on our staff, and we rely on our committees, and I'm comfortable that I understand this bill in its entirety, Wolf, without pouring through every word. And I'm just being quite honest. That's the way it is.
Now, I got to say, in the guy's defense,
I mean, they do have staffs for a
yeah,
purpose.
staff for a purpose, and I like how he's like, I want credit for not lying to your face, Wolf, this time. But the fact of the matter is they made a big deal of this last time. And you know what? Good. I'm glad that Chris Collins can get up there and say, I know everything that's in this bill and I'm totally confident about it, because guess what, buddy? I think it's Nancy Pelosi said after the vote, we're going to tattoo it on your head. It's going to glow in the dark.
Exactly.
This bill.
Well, that's right. I take your word that you were properly and fully briefed on what an absolute catastrophic moral catastrophe this is, and you knew exactly what you were doing. This one is actually a bit more damning.
Here's another guy also sort of conceding, and you know what? Chris Collins said, I'm not going to lie to you, Wolf. I didn't read it, but my staff did. I'm quite sure this guy's staff didn't even read it. I get that sense. This guy's, I don't think so.
He's also unimpressed by people out protesting.
Yeah, here we go.
Have you read the whole bill?
Oh, gosh. Let's put it this way. People in my office have read all the parts of the bill. I don't think any individual has read the whole bill, but that's why we have staff.
Is that not a risk? Because people in your office weren't the ones who were elected. Dozens of protesters were kicked off your office property in Virginia earlier this week, and they want you to vote no. I want you to take a look at this.
It's like whack-a-mole with these House Republicans. One bad bill goes away and another comes up a few weeks later.
People will literally get sick, literally be dying at higher rates than they would otherwise.
The Affordable Care Act, for me, saved me. It's really a matter of life and death.
People in the state of Virginia, they voted for you, not your staff. And there were protesters there who said that Obamacare saved their life. What do you say to that?
I would wager, based on the locality that particular event occurred in, and I wasn't there, that none of those people did vote for me.
See, here's a congressman who's not just honest; he's super honest. In other words, nobody could possibly have read that whole bill. We just had staff members who read part of it. But in the end, also, I don't care if people in my district who didn't vote for me die. I mean, I don't have to worry about them because they didn't vote for me anyways.
A couple of things you're missing about Congress, sweetie. Number one, don't read the bills. Got staff for that. Number two, didn't vote for me. I mean, I wouldn't stop to help these people if they were having a heart attack on the side of the road.
Let me explain something to you. They didn't vote for me. They die. Guess what? I win by a bigger margin.
Yeah, seems like that actually might be good vis-a-vis Tom Garrett.
Right. That's called a win-win.
How does this look Tom Garrett-wise?
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Meanwhile, we saw that Rob Quist tweeted out literally seconds after the Republicans voted for this, basically saying, like, I would never vote for this bill because I care about people. And the first person to go out, I mean, and we saw Democrats, apparently, and I'll talk about this in a second, but Democrats are reportedly very convinced that this vote is going to hurt Republicans significantly. And I think in part of that equation, they may be underestimating what's going to happen in the Senate, frankly. But here is an example of Tom Perriello, who is a former congressperson, who is very good on economic issues, has, not the best past support of a woman's rights to choose, but certainly no worse than Tim Kaine, as far as I can tell.
Not remote. I don't think quite as bad as Tim Kaine.
He was first out of the gates with an ad on about this repeal and replace bill by the Republicans. Here's that ad right now. He is standing in front of an ambulance that's being crushed at a junkyard.
Republican leaders are trying to do this to affordable health care. I'm Tom Perriello, and in Congress I voted for Obamacare because it was wrong that 1 million Virginians weren't covered, while insurance companies held all the power. Now I'm running for governor because it's wrong that most Virginia incomes haven't gone up in 20 years. Together, we can stop Donald Trump, raise wages, and build an economy that works for everyone. And we'll make sure this never happens in Virginia.
Now, apparently what was also impressive about there's only one ambulance.
Yeah.
So this was you get one shot at this. And, that type of thing, actually, like, that impresses the politicos. Like, this guy's, he's good.
Politicos are it's very interesting what jumps out in their minds in situations like this.
This is going to drive people nuts, because it drove me nuts, and I know it's going to drive you nuts. Chris Cillizza, is that how you pronounce that guy's name?
From Washington Post guy?
Yes, but now I think he's at CNN.
Yes, Chris Cillizza is the worst, and that is how you pronounce his name.
The worst? Is that it? Is that how I pronounce his name?
The worst Cillizza.
Are you sure it's not Cillizza?
You know what? I know it's
pretty
the
sure.
worst.
I've heard him. Yeah, it's the worst.
And this guy, he wrote a piece.
The baby facest with the hackiest.
He wrote a piece.
Is this the Ivanka piece?
No.
Okay, is this it's bad form to criticize Ivanka for covering for her dad's virulently anti-woman agenda? Okay.
It's actually sort of even...
Have you found the piece?
I had it here.
I was trying to vamp for you so you could find it. Okay.
I had it here and I lost it, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, you got it. You're good to go.
He wrote a piece about the moment when the bill passed. And
ooh, this sounds very dangerous, very ominous.
Well, the Democrats started to sing.
We played it yesterday.
Yeah, we played it yesterday.
Hey, hey, goodbye.
Goodbye. Yeah, right.
From the same great political brain trust that predicted, Trump's the nominee. We got this in the bag.
Right. Okay. So he writes this piece, 31 seconds of the healthcare vote that shows why people hate politics. Now, you look at the headline. Now, this is a vote where, from a process standpoint, the Republicans have voted on a bill that very few of them had read, that they did not know the implications of this bill in terms of how much it would cost, how many people would be impacted, how many people would die. I mean, I'm not being... I'm not.
You're being quite
no
literal.
Hyperbole.
Actually,
this is
not
literal.
virtual,
That's what the
literal.
Congressional Budget Office does. They say, what are going to be the implications of this? The Republicans rushed this bill in there so that it would not be scored. What we do know about the bill, based upon the score from the last one, and this one's worse, so it could be more dramatic, that 24 million people will lose their health insurance, that Social Security will save $3 billion because of the increase in rate of deaths of people because they don't have health care. It will destroy Medicaid's and requirements for other insurance to provide stuff like addiction help. It will hurt special ed for children. It will get rid of the essential benefits. It will include the ability for insurance companies to put lifetime and annual caps on what you can pay. So if you were Jimmy Kimmel's kid and they had that surgery and you didn't have Jimmy Kimmel's money, you basically would have burned through at the very least your annual, maybe your lifetime, and that's it. You're done. You're SOL. You got to figure out how you're going to go bankrupt to keep your kid alive. And the list goes on. But there are 31 seconds, according to Chris Cillizza, why people hate politics. And it has nothing to do with any of those things. Nothing to do with any of those things. Nothing to do with the fact that maybe those people who voted for Donald Trump and thought like, oh, he's going to make our healthcare better because he's saying I'm going to make it better. I'm going to make it more universal. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with when the House Republicans won the vote, Democrats immediately began taunting their across-the-aisle rivals. Hey, nah, hey, goodbye, Democrats saying at Republicans. A few Democrats even waved goodbye. The implication was obvious. Democrats believed many Republicans had just cost themselves their political careers by voting for an overhaul of Obamacare. Let's be honest. I mean, it's not an overhaul of Obamacare. It's a complete repeal, and it's a destruction of a lot of our existing healthcare apparatus and infrastructure. And the D.C. political class wonders why people hate them.
I thought in the Bundestag, when Hitler as chancellor gave his first address, and there were some remaining social democrats who hadn't been rounded up and thrown in concentration camps yet, the fact that they didn't stand and applaud really was the sort of the collapse of civil society.
Yeah, because you're rude.
This is why people hate us. This is why we can't come together and find a common solution to the Jews.
I mean, it was pretty dorky thing.
It was dorky,
So
but
if
that's not why.
I
But
don't
I mean,
think
that's
Chris
his analysis,
Cillizza
is
is
that
never
this
going
is
to be
say
attacking
dorky
anyone for being
thing.
dorky. Chris Cillizza is the dorkiest person
maybe
on the
it was
planet.
uncouth. Maybe it was not even smart politics. But for a guy to walk away with that vote and say, this is why people hate politics.
That's what I'm saying.
No, the reason why people hate politics
It's because of Chris Cillizza.
is, no, because most people don't know Chris.
I know.
But the reason why people hate politics is because they feel like they keep getting screwed. And arguably, Chris Cillizza is squatting on territory, breathing air, cashing a paycheck, sitting in a seat that theoretically could be filled by another reporter who would actually communicate to people, hey, this is what just happened. That politics are not about the performative aspects, or that they're secondary or tertiary. But what's primary is that maybe the reason why people hate politics is because they're getting lied to by an entire party that is telling them that they're going to have people will be covered. They will have full access to coverage. That type of thing. Maybe that's why they hate politics. Unbelievable.
I want to do a Chris Cillizza through history piece. So what I do is like many people objected not to the ban on the ANC and the implementation of apartheid, but certain ANC leaders calling National Party leaders out of touch. This is really what South African voters object to. What a moron. And there's also a woman at the Post who took his old slot, who had the classic Paul Ryan in front of a deck explaining numbers.
But here's the thing. Here's the other part about it. And here is this is a problem that we have across the board. Whether you're doing does Hillary Clinton have Parkinson's videos or something like this, you're doing them because this is a way for you to get hits. You don't go on and take a contrarian standpoint about Ivanka Trump that makes no sense. I mean, look, she may be up there, defending her father, but she's not doing that as a daughter. She's doing it as the president's closest advisor
and girlfriend,
and perhaps some more. But more importantly, she's doing it as a federal employee. She may not be taking her pay because she's just making it on side deals, but she's doing it as the advisor of the president. And the idea that you would write something like that, you can't be that ignorant. You can't be as ignorant as this. I just don't think that it's possible, and you have the ability to find your office every day. So I think he's just doing this to get hits in some respects.
Yeah, he's a cynic. But just circling back for a moment, something you said caught me. Hillary Clinton has Parkinson's disease?
I'm saying if you were to do a video
I didn't realize
claiming that she did, and the media's covering up for her.
There was a great BuzzFeed profile of Alex Jones that I read. I'll send it to you. And one of among many funny takeaways, he almost certainly voted for Obama in 2012 because he had an anxiety attack about his business getting affected.
Seriously?
I mean, it's not 100% confirmed, but they said his employees said that he was seriously anxious on election night, and it was not because oh my God, the globalist that was going to win. It was because if Obama gets out of here, that's going to really affect our business model. And then someone else said that he indicated to him that yes, he probably voted for Obama.
Well, that's silly. He's in Texas,
dude. Look, he takes what he does really seriously. He's a great father.
Buy that.
You don't buy. I buy it.
That's enough out of
I
you,
buy
Michael.
it. I buy it.
Talk about
He's a terrific
Alex Jones
parent.
in that way.
That's enough out of
But
you,
I
Sam.
was not maligning Alex Jones.
Oh,
with
my goodness.
With the Hillary Clinton.
No, I know.
Parkinson's.
I know.
I was thinking of another Alex Jones.
Everyone just knew she had
I think we know who you're
Parkinson's.
maligning. But then he got depressed the day after Trump won. Also, according to this report, because again, same reason, major.
Much harder.
Yep. There you go.
I think probably for him, it's more like postpartum depression.
You should. You know what? I don't even understand that joke, but it's funny.
Because he's of all the hormones
I
and the male vitality. Is that what's happening?
After he
gave birth to victory. I get it.
Trump
It's disgusting, but it's kind of funny.
Could be. Let's go to you calling from a 610 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam, Michael from Pennsylvania. How are you?
Michael from Pennsylvania. How are you, sir?
Good. I wanted to talk to you more about this health care bill because it looks like we had like 5 Pennsylvania Republicans who voted against it. So that's actually a really good sign for, the midterms, because they wouldn't be doing that unless they have some very bad numbers that are internal.
Right. Yeah, they thought, what's his face? McCarthy thought that they were going to get 230, and I think they got like 220. Like they just basically released everybody they could.
Yeah. Everybody who's in a blue state or purple state is voting against it pretty much. The thing that's really surprising to me is that they actually rammed it through the way they did. Like, there's going to be a CBO score. It's not going to make it through the Senate without everybody knowing exactly what's going to happen. And, going by what we did, what we saw last time around, we know how many people are going to be affected. We know how many people are going to die. It's about 250,000 people will die in the next 10 years from Trump care.
Right.
So it's not just it's a $275 billion tax cut for the top 2%.
I'll tell you something. They would not have been able to pass it if they hadn't done that. I think the reason why they were celebrating is that, look, Trump doesn't. Let's just go down the line. Trump doesn't care, right?
I totally don't care.
I mean, honestly, like, I was watching the President Show last night, which is like now the only comedy show I watch, I think. And he said, well, we did it. We passed it. And people booed. And then he goes, yeah, I hated it too. Whatever. And the point is, like, Trump didn't care, right? Trump doesn't care at all. He just wants the win. And that's why they were all so excited. And that's all that Paul Ryan wanted.
Did you read the article about him talking with Upton, who was holding it up because of pre-existing conditions? And they're on the phone, and apparently Trump is berating him and cursing at him, and Upton is doing the approach that you try with Trump, which is, oh, no, Mr. President, you and I are on the same page, and I'm trying to protect pre-existing conditions just like you want. And in the article, they're like, Trump is just like, I don't know if he explicitly says I don't care, but he does not even pretend to have a second for, it's like, we just need a win.
Right.
You don't get it. Like, I don't give an F, period.
And I think this is what scares me about it. I think a lot of those people voted with the idea that it was going to die in the Senate. And I'm afraid, honestly, it's going to be,
What makes you think that?
Why do I think they voted with that? Because I think they felt like...
No, what I mean is, why would they think it's going to die in the Senate? This reminds me of the DeVos nomination. I could see it going 50-50, but there's not a lot of people. Like Pat Toomey just got reelected. He doesn't give a shit. He's voting for it. He's Club for Growth founder.
Yep.
So, who are they going to pick off?
Well, I think they're thinking like Caputo. I think they're thinking Collins. I think they're thinking Flake. I think they're thinking
Susan Collins voted against DeVos. Flake and Collins probably would vote against it, maybe.
And maybe
but
Lisa
Heller
Murkowski's thrown in there too.
Yeah, maybe.
Listen, there was so much talk that this was going to die, and the other thing is, it's not inconceivable that there are aspects of this bill that the parliamentarian will say is not relevant to reconciliation, like the waiver. Like,
right.
How does the waiver really? It's possible, but again, that's why I was using that analogy with Cliff, like where with in the Republican primary, like somebody's going to take out Trump. It's like a fait accompli, so much so I don't have to do anything about it. And so I think a lot of these people thought, at the end of the day, not that it was a free vote, but I think they thought like, what will happen is the CBO score will come out. I'll say, wait a second, if I had known this beforehand, I would have never voted for it. And I asked the leadership to do, it's going to be lame, but when you're sitting there and people are saying like, you're going to be the reason why the president, if we don't do this, I can understand the pressure it was on them, because the fact is, if they did not get that thing through, they're not going to get tax cuts. And if they don't get tax cuts, then what good are they? They're useless.
Really important. This is something that people aren't talking about because it's a synthesis between their tax reform and the healthcare reform. And when they block grant Medicare and Medicaid, what they're going to do is they're getting rid of this local and state income tax deduction. So it's going to make it impossible for California or New York to maintain the Medicare or Medicaid system they have now, because you're going to be double taxed on your state income tax. And so all those blue states are going to be disproportionately hurt by this, and it's going to blow up the budgets of all the state governments that have a state income tax, because their citizens are going to see a significant tax increase.
Right.
Like in California, that's like 10% marginal rate, not 10% tax increase. So it is a huge sucker punch to state level governance as well.
Yep.
So it's not just that they're trying to gut it at the federal level; they're trying to make it so that state governments
can't support their end of the Medicaid,
right.
payments. So just to explain this to people, just one more time, they're cutting it by a quarter, and then they are changing the mechanism in which in their tax reform, what deductions can take place, and therefore they're putting a double burden on states, particularly in blue states, to pay for Medicaid. And that's going to create pressure against those state legislatures, and they're going to have to cut taxes, which means they're going to they'll end up taking it from Medicaid, amongst other things.
And so that's, yeah, exactly. And what's funny to me is Trump actually said he's not going to cut Medicaid. He's not going to cut Medicare. He said it on January 15th of this year. It's not like I'm talking about 2015.
Well, he's very an honest person, so it's a big fucking surprise.
What I like is just don't tell me. Let me.
We told him that this expands Medicaid and that it's terrific, and he said, "Great fucking bill, I win."
You know what? Let me just.
I believe
let
that.
me
By
reference.
the way,
Let me reference Gary Busey. Gary Busey, an insane person who I directed. All he needed from
come get you one day.
He might. All he needed was for me to tell him anything. And it didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter. Like he showed up on the day one, the first day I worked with him. I had met him once before. He showed up. We were in Taos, and we were shooting something in this like big desert like area. And he apparently somebody comes rushing over and says, "You got to go deal." He's saying we're not going to shoot here. And I'm like, why? And he goes, I don't know. He's just saying he won't shoot here. And so I come walking up to Gary. I drive down. I go walk up to Gary. And as I'm walking up, he's just like, we can't shoot here. We can't shoot here. And I'm like,
oh my God, it's the birth of the Alex Jones right there.
Are you, really? Yeah, no, this is not right. And I said, oh, because this place, the reason why we were shooting here, because this is the episode about the Native American, and this ground is the only area within 300 miles where they can grow organic garlic. And according to the Native Americans, it's because of the vortex coming out of that peak over there. And he's like,
there's a vortex?
Oh my God. We're shooting here. This is exactly where we need to shoot.
We can't shoot anywhere else.
And like, there was no way I thought.
Sam, you should be White House chief of staff.
Well, but there was no way I thought he can't possibly believe me. But he just needed a story that he could hang on to.
Yep.
And so I'm sure there are people who are just telling Trump all he needs is to just have in his mind to rationalize or justify. Oh, we're actually making it more efficient. Making it more efficient? Great. We got to shoot here.
I mean, I have this strange feeling that there is possibly a way that Gary Busey believed you. And it's highly likely, actually.
It's possible, but
and
you could just tell.
Vortexes sound cool when you're high, okay? And then in the case of Donald Trump, he doesn't give a shit. If you tell him what he wants to hear, he'll believe it.
That's what I'm saying. I think Gary was the same way. Yeah, I just need somebody who can say something to me that is remotely convincing, and I will buy it. And it just has to be remotely convincing, and you just can't show any fear.
It just needs to be remotely convincing. It doesn't need to be that deep. Right. You just need, can someone just say, hey, pre-existings are taken care of beautifully, and begin.
Right.
What's that, rights? Pre-existings are taken care of beautifully. Great. Now the bill's great.
Honestly,
It's a win.
I'm convinced
Thank
that's
you.
what it is.
It's not that fucking hard.
And I
Where's
think,
the vodka for
but
my
I think
rub?
the lawmakers, I think there's many lawmakers in the House who think this thing is not going to pass in the Senate. And I think that's a mistake. I think something's going to come out of the Senate. I don't know if it's going to be this. And from my perspective, something's going to pass out of the Senate. How could it not? And
they want to cut taxes.
Yes.
That's all they care about.
Yes. That's all they care about. And the price for them to pay, I think they just like, it's sort of all I could think of when I was going over this last night was like Survivor. Like, you're at the bottom. Like if you and forgive me, folks. But I've watched every episode of Survivor for almost 17 years.
Jesus Christ.
And the one thing that I've noticed is like
why?
I watch it with Mila. It's fun. I like it. But even if your back is totally against the wall, the key is just to make it past this one vote. Like it gets to the people who get in trouble is when they don't put getting past this one situation as paramount. They're trying to think too far down the road. You should have that planned out, and I think that's what's going on here. And I think that's the way they're operating, and it works out more often than it doesn't. And in this case, by work out, I mean is going to be tragic for the country.
Everyone always says think strategically, but look, here's what I did. The polls were bad. I went out and I said, hey, Muslims, then the polls were good. I wasn't thinking, how is this going to play out 3 months from now? What happens when it's ruled unconstitutional? What happens when Hillary finds some old loser Pakistani guy whose kid got killed? And guess what? It didn't matter then, and it doesn't matter now.
And isn't this
Just
the way that
pass
Donald
something.
Trump works? Like,
Of
he'll say
course.
something, and then 3 days later, he'll completely contradict it because
Yes.
he's like, how do I get out of this question?
Oh, not only that, I will wager that when this comes back in whatever form it comes back in 2018 or 2020, he is going to say, I was opposed to this bill. Like, I fought tooth and nail against
Yes,
all
he
of the
will.
terrible parts of it.
I was
and by
nice.
the way, I'm the only person.
I was happy for Paul Ryan, but believe me, it would have been much worse if I wasn't in the
I
room.
was happy for him as a person, but they wanted to sacrifice kids in public, folks. Now, what we need a beautiful health care bill, and I'm the only one who could deliver it. And his supporters will actually re-up on that.
Yep. Appreciate the call.
Yes, they will. And that's, yeah. Thanks so much, Sam. You have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. For instance.
Exactly.
All right. For instance, does Donald Trump have the ability to completely contradict himself almost within the same moment? Like he's almost, it's not inconceivable there aren't like two Donald Trumps living in a parallel universe. That's the way he sort of segues in. It's almost like a DJ with two different albums. So he praises the bill that is passed in the House that decimates health care coverage for literally 24 million people. And then I've got to go over and I'm going to compliment somebody who's got the complete opposite idea of health care.
Could get maybe even better. It's a very good bill right now. The premiums are going to come down very substantially. The deductibles are going to come down. It's going to be fantastic health care. Right now, Obamacare is failing. We have a failing health care. I shouldn't say this to our great gentleman and my friend from Australia because you have better health care than we do.
Yeah.
They do have.
Oh, no, pause it. So that is Donald Trump with the Prime Minister of Australia.
Australia's Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull.
And this is a clip of Hayes and Bernie Sanders. Just can you go back just a little bit on it, Kelly, of Hayes and Bernie Sanders watching this clip, and watch Bernie Sanders' reaction here because he's blown away by it.
They do have. They have universal health. I know. I thought you would.
Okay. Wait a minute, Chris. All right. The president has just said it. That's great. Let's take a look at the Australian healthcare system. And let's move. Maybe let's take a look at the Canadian health system or systems throughout Europe. Thank you, Mr. President. Let us move to a Medicare for all system that does what every other major country on earth does. Guarantee health care to all people at a fraction of the cost per capita that we spend. Thank you, Mr. President. We'll quote you on the floor of the Senate.
Yeah, there you go. We'll quote you on the floor of the Senate. And in fact, yes, Australia does have, and not only does Australia have like a Medicare for all style program, it is literally called Medicare. And so it would be super easy. I got sick when I was living in Australia. This 25 years ago. I don't know if it was the same system. I think they instituted it probably a couple years before I got there. I got sick. I was diagnosed with asthma. I had a problem with my ear. I would go in. I would see a doctor. It was like almost easier than going to a pharmacy, and it would cost $20.
Half of your life was really cool.
Yeah, half of my life was really cool. But there you have it. Donald Trump doesn't care what he's saying. He doesn't care what's coming out of his mouth.
He truly does not care.
And it's not going to mean anything.
Well, I think that's what I hope people can start to understand. And I'm glad earlier with Cliff that you kind of, sure, let's play the clips of them saying that they didn't read it or anything. But the whole hypocrisy, they contradict themselves. I mean, it's just, of course.
Doesn't
That's
matter.
who they are.
Doesn't matter.
It completely doesn't matter.
This is just about pure power. It's not about making
That's
an argument.
what
It
politics
is
is.
make them afraid of losing their jobs. Make them afraid of losing their jobs. And frankly, even in that situation, there's no guarantee.
Dishonesty's worked pretty well for me.
But there's no guarantee even that they care about losing their jobs. I mean, they're like,
Maybe there's
they'd be
a bigger
willing to risk
payout.
it. Yeah, maybe they're willing to risk it. Now, speaking of lying, here is Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, who understands, and this is both the value of what Jimmy Kimmel said the other night when he told this really heartbreaking story about his son, and in many ways inspiring. And he made the point of saying, you know, without calling it Obamacare, really, but he said that there was, you know, until very recently, we didn't have, you could be denied health insurance if you had a pre-existing condition. And he said, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or whatnot. Well, sadly, we learned yesterday that it does. That's why it was a party line vote.
Right.
And the unfortunate thing about him not being specific about that is that a Republican can pretend that he is adopting the measures that Kimmel is saying and exploit Kimmel. But I'm willing to bet anything. I know where Bill Cassidy is going to end up voting. And what he's going to end up voting on is not going to be anything that is going to allow for pre-existing conditions for all, or the prevention of being denied of health insurance because of a pre-existing condition by all people. I'm willing to bet everything I own that Bill Cassidy will be on the wrong side of that vote. But here he is pretending otherwise with John Berman on CNN.
Could you support a bill? Let's not talk in absolutes, but in general terms, could you support a bill that allows insurance companies to cap their payouts to customers?
As you present that, I asked, does it pass the Jimmy Kimmel test? Would the child born with a congenital heart disease be able to get everything she or he would need in that first year of life? I want it to pass the Jimmy Kimmel test. So, simple answer, I want to make sure, and the Cassidy-Collins bill accomplishes this, that if a child is born and has tetralogy of Fallot, I think that's what this child had, that they would receive all the services even if they go over a certain amount. Mm-hmm. So, simple answer, I want to make sure folks get the care they need.
All right, pause it. This is one of the most disingenuous things that I think you really could, I mean, and what's so disgusting about this is that he knows it. The question that Berman asks is, what about insurance caps? In other words, if you have this disease this kid is born with, and you have a lifetime cap on what insurance will pay out at $1 million, which was the standard of insurance prior to the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, you would still get that service. It's just that the insurance company wouldn't be paying the rest of it. And so you would have a bill. I would imagine that first week, the hospital is not going to just stop as soon as your insurance runs out. But if you're going to come back, that hospital may say, like, whoa, you already owe us $250,000 because you were in here for, a month, and we did multiple open heart surgeries. You owe us $1.2 million, and your insurance company's only done $1 million. We're going to probably need to see something on that $200,000. And then, you mortgage your house, or you sell your house, or you borrow some money from your friends and you pay it off. And then going forward, there's no insurance money for that kid. Let's go back. Just keep in mind, that's what it is, because this is the most disingenuous way of answering this question. And this is the problem when you try and make something apolitical that is definitely political. He asked the question about insurance payment caps. And this cretin, Bill Cassidy, sort of very slyly dodges the question. And I guess in a way that maybe John Berman didn't particularly notice.
As you present that.
As you present it.
I asked, does it pass the Jimmy Kimmel test? Would the child born with a congenital heart disease be able to get everything she or he would need in that first year of life? I want it to pass the Jimmy Kimmel test. So, simple answer, I want to make sure, and the Cassidy-Collins bill accomplishes this, that if a child is born and has tetralogy of Fallot, I think that's what this child had, that they would receive all the services even if they go over a certain amount. So, a simple answer, I want to make sure folks get the care they need.
Yeah, so they get the services even if they go over that amount. And then the family goes bankrupt. 50% of all bankruptcies, 50% of all bankruptcies prior to 2014 were a function, personal bankruptcies were a function of healthcare costs. 50%. So what's old is new again, folks. Isn't that nice?
I have a piece of legislation that will specifically protect Jimmy Kimmel's baby. If he ever loses that late night gig, we'll take care of him. It's the Jimmy Kimmel
That is what it's called,
test.
building the critique into the
Yes.
product. Calling from an 847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Josh from Chicago, a.k.a. Brooklyn.
Hey, Josh from Chicago, otherwise known as Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's just a suburb outside of Brooklyn.
He was at the show.
Actually,
Hi.
What? Yeah, I was, and you told my story about the people who were
No,
really
I didn't.
inspired by the Ken. Yeah, on the
I
show.
didn't do
you
that.
Did.
No, I didn't.
Are you?
Why don't you just say
Well-
what you're talking about?
Okay, so I have friends who believe that the Ken leak of Obama speaking with his British allies is real.
Dude, who are you hanging out with?
And when can I hang out with them? Because they sound amazing.
I know. I told you Michael would be real excited.
How many are they?
It was one.
I feel like maybe we should just do a Ken and Ken show specifically for that guy. You bring him,
I'll
and
get
we're
him
just
to call in.
no, we're doing a live show, and you bring
Yeah,
him
he
to
can
the
join
live,
us live.
live show, and it'll
Exactly.
be like everybody.
Thanks for joining us, dude.
We're in enemy territory here.
We're here
It's total Yankees.
by the frickin' Gowanus Lesbian Canal in Yankee
my
territory,
God.
broadcasting for like frickin' freedom and whatnot. And we have a tape now of Barack Obama saying that
We're gonna
Donald
play
Trump
this
should be hitting a
every
drone
Forgot his
strike.
middle name.
Hello, Governor. All right. So,
Have a
That's the
couple of more.
funniest part that he believed that.
Have a couple of more needs on my wish list, white boy.
righto. Let me
tap
just
on
finish drinking my
All the
tea.
white people.
All right. So, well, what do you
English
got?
breakfast, am I right, motherfucker? Allahu Akbar.
What's up?
Anyways, I actually did because obviously the healthcare. Obviously, one of the things that actually, so there's a health act, a healthcare bill right now in the state senate in New York, a single payer bill
Mm-hmm.
that's making its rounds, and actually, scum of the earth IDC
Yep.
sort of made a huge,
Explain that for everybody
setback.
outside.
The IDC
Well,
is a group
yeah.
of 8 Democrats who caucus
yeah.
with the Republicans.
Scum of the earth.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, including one who Marisol Alcantara, who ran as a Bernie-crat, and who I maybe was a Bernie delegate, and then joined the IDC because she claimed she could get money, or that's how she would be able to fund her election, and then was one of the people who killed this single-payer healthcare.
Wow.
Not killed it. Let's say stop the momentum. But it is still alive, and I think right now I think several grassroots groups are calling our local state senators, and I just wanted to encourage anybody who lives in New York to call their local state senators and assemblymen to get them to support this bill. I think especially after the what happened yesterday, which is truly a travesty, and my mom, who works in the healthcare industry, said that from what she heard that this bill is actually worse than the bill they tried to shove in. Was it a month ago now?
Yeah. This is worse.
It's worse.
Yeah, this is much worse. But that this bill right now is key. And Pelosi recently did shut down any attempt at having a single payer on a Democratic platform. But what she did say was smart was that to start at the state level with single payer. And I do agree that I think if we can start at the state level, we can show that this actually can be done. And it would provide a single payer and would basically, it would essentially make private health care in New York null and void. But it's something that a lot of the local hospital groups have been on board with as well. It's a very good bill. It's actually better than there have been previous attempts at this. And this one is much better than the other ones. So I would just want to encourage people to lobby their local representatives for this.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Appreciate
call, and tell your mother I say hi.
Calling from an 845 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 845. Hello?
Hello? Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you want to get closer to your phone, or what are you doing? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Who's this?
So this is Dylan from Chicago.
Hello, Dylan.
I wanted to respond to the doctor who wrote yesterday with his list of constructive advice for the show.
Yes.
I wanted to say first of all that I agree there's been a decline in the quality of the guests in the show. Like George Carlin hasn't been on in a while.
That's true. He's not returned a single one of our emails.
Rude.
And I also have some pretty good credentials. I won a Pulitzer Prize for my work in The Guardian about Edward Snowden and the documents I uncovered with him.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so you should consider having me on the show, too.
Well, you're on the show.
And serious question. Do you have any takeaways from Trump's meeting with Mahmoud Abbas and his visit to the Middle East? And do you think that Rabbi Shmuley should have a bigger role in this whole thing than he does already?
Well,
Rabbi
I'm going to
Shmuley.
answer off the. I'll let you off the line and answer it. I mean, Rabbi Shmuley, of course.
It's proof that God doesn't exist. He is the definitive proof that there is no God.
But we had a theory about what happened when Abbas met with Trump, and it was more or less like. Just
You are a
like,
great man. You do great business. Come here. I want to sell you a beautiful rug for your beautiful home. Great American handsome businessman.
And Trump
oh my
was
God.
immediate.
Wait a second.
You're the nicest guy
These
I've
are
ever
the
met.
Best people. I'm going to call the Israelis right now.
Wait a second. You're going to give me a good deal just for me.
Just for me.
Deal for me.
Deal for
Yeah,
me.
deal for you.
Yeah, deal for you. Deal for you. You're a great man. You're a great man.
Yeah.
I think the racism that has been shown towards the Palestinians is obscene. By the way, how could there be a Trump hotel in a place that isn't a state with
Right.
its own security force? It's totally unfair.
So I can have a hotel wherever I want. Okay.
And we want you to have hotel every block. Every block. Ramallah could be called a Trump bank because you are a great man. Great man. And your daughter is most beautiful daughter in the world. Believe me, if she was my daughter, I am dating my daughter, my friend. Other daughter, not so
Great guy.
much.
Great guy. Great guy. Great
Amazing
guy.
human being.
Great guy.
Get Bibi on the phone now because he was nice, but now that I see what really nice is, completely
was
shifts
not
my
nice enough.
perspective.
You calling from a 602 area code. Who's this?
Hi, Sam. This is Frank from Phoenix, Arizona.
Hey, Frank, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm with you on this. This is a huge tax cut, and it's going to pass the Senate. This is the same Senate that held up a Supreme Court seat for a year. Do you really trust Mitch McConnell? No, this is pretty bad. But that's not actually the reason I called. I have a question for you, and for Michael can chime in on this as well. You guys are. I'm a sports fan, right? Major League Baseball and the NBA. So I live down here in Phoenix. I follow my local baseball team. We're a pretty red kind of purple state. We're still crazy. But the funny thing is when you go to a Major League Baseball game here, I sit in the bleachers. I sit in the right field, left field bleachers. We don't racially harass the African American or the Latino outfielders. And I'm just wondering, you guys are both from Massachusetts, right?
Red Sox. Boston is the worst.
Boston is a very, very racist place. People don't, I think, really get how racist it is.
They were listen.
I don't understand.
The Red Sox were the last team in baseball to have a black player. The Celtics were probably the whitest team in the NBA, at least when I was growing up, I think.
Exactly. No, exactly. You Bird, McHale, Danny Ainge.
Yep.
We had Danny Ainge here in Phoenix, whatever. But the thing is you've got David Price, who's an African-American pitcher, who plays for the Red Sox, who hears the N-word last year from his own fans.
Here's the deal.
And I don't understand.
The next day, and I can't remember who the Oriole was that was harassed racially, and it's well known in
Adam
the league.
Jones.
Yeah, he got a standing ovation. All right, so there's
that doesn't make any difference.
Well, no.
I'm
not saying. I'm trying to tell you that there is a strong strain of racism in that city that is incredibly durable, and I would say probably throughout Massachusetts in many respects. But there's also probably a larger contingent of people who are embarrassed by it. But there's a strong, durable strain of racism.
But I would read about,
city.
if you're interested in just even reading a book on busing in the 70s.
But
I know it's older.
was an indication.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I'm well aware of that.
Yeah.
Bill Russell called it a flea market of racism.
Yeah,
and also that was another.
I don't understand.
You don't understand where it comes from?
I don't understand. I mean, no, I really don't. Just
come
because,
from the potato fields.
Yeah, I guess if you're Irish, because I'm a Latino here in Arizona, I've been profiled, but because I don't speak Spanish and I don't speak with an accent, the cops stop me. I say, yes, sir. No, sir. Here's my papers. I'm okay.
Right.
So it seems to me that a lot of the hate crimes and a lot of, the anti-Semitic behavior, it's going on in blue states. New York, Pennsylvania was a blue state, not anymore, but still, I mean, it's just California.
There's plenty of racism in blue states. Of course. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't understand.
I think that I guess the best way that I can sort of describe it is that the racism in blue. Let me just talk about Massachusetts because that's what I know best. Is that there was a strong sort of like civic notion that you should not be racist, right? And I mean, that's where marriage equality started in Massachusetts. And I can tell you, I know people who have known people, particularly older people, who have articulated to me basically a vision of black people deserve the exact same rights as everyone else, or as anybody else. Gay people deserve the same rights as anybody else. But the fact is they don't, they're lazy. And that type of, a lot of that type that of type of
that's right.
Where fundamentally, I believe that there should be no second-class citizens in terms of the eyes of the law. But, personally,
I don't want them in my neighborhood. There's a ton of that. I also think, it's like in 2006, I think it was, Deval Patrick, that was when he became elected governor of Massachusetts, and David Axelrod ran that or did strategy for that campaign. And people were like, that's a test run for Obama running for president. I remember some people kind of had this generic well, that's ridiculous because Massachusetts is so liberal. But actually, there hadn't been a Democratic governor, I think, since like the 80s or the early 90s. And secondly, there was the argument was actually that no, Deval Patrick showing that you could run the right kind of race to win working class districts in Massachusetts actually did have implications for running a national campaign.
The first African American senator, I believe he was the first African American
Post-Reconstruction.
Post-Reconstruction was Edward Brooke
from
in Massachusetts. And
he was a Republican. Was a liberal.
Yeah,
Republican.
that's what I was going to say. He was a Republican. So,
well,
yeah.
but it doesn't exist today.
Yes, no, it really doesn't. But I want to thank you guys for one thing, Sam. I love your show. Michael, you're awesome. Kelly, you're awesome. I want to thank all of you for helping me wean myself off of cable news. Oh, well, Matt's not here, so
Suck it? Is that what you're saying?
You guys help me. You help me wean myself off of cable news. It's John Berman knew that the Louisiana senator was full of shit, but he's not going to say it because he's CNN. So, getting off of cable news has been one of the best things I've ever done. I just listen to you guys, and and I'm scared. Like I said, I called you election night. My job is tied into the Affordable Care Act. My wife is on Medicaid. I have private insurance, so now that Medicaid is going to be, Doug Ducey's our governor. If he wants a waiver, it's not going to make a difference if I can move to California or Colorado. It doesn't matter because we're screwed anyways. So, again, if Hillary Clinton, I hate to harp on this, the corporate Democrat gives me more than the corporate Republican does. So that's right. Just how I feel with the I'm working class. I make $40,000 a year. So, that's my take, Sam. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Good weekend.
Appreciate it.
I don't want to vote for corporatists anymore.
Calling from a 515 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Sanjeeva from Ames, Iowa.
Hi, Sanjeeva. What's on your mind?
Well, there were local elections in Britain yesterday. Labor, it was a mixed bag, but all the elections which I helped Jeremy Corbyn's supporters to phone bank for were all won. So it's not on me. It's definitely, and I've noticed something interesting. All the Labor candidates who lost in the local elections were running away from Jeremy Corbyn. The ones who ran with him, especially in mayoral elections, won. And also the turnout was pretty low, lowest turnout in decades.
Wow. Interesting.
And also a pollster just said Corbyn might be able to pull it off. He's predicted it since the 1970s if the turnout is high. And it seems students are registering at a really high rate. And a poll showed that 55% of UK teens 18 to 24 want to vote Labour. Only 18% want the Conservative.
I guess we'll see. I always get a little nervous about, the stories of like, if the kids come out and vote, man, we're totally going to win this thing because they just, when is the election?
Yeah. The election's June 8th, so they have 5 weeks to figure this shit out.
Well,
and for Michael, I think if Corbyn loses, I think it should be Skinner because Corbyn's just, I'm sorry to say it, he's too weak to handle the Blairites. Skinner
I think that's
won't take any shit from them.
I think it should have been.
I think Corbyn needs to go like, listen, motherfucker, to these Blairites who are bitching about him all the time. You either run with me or go become a Lib Dem or something, and I will personally fuck you up and deselect you. That's what he has
I think
to
we
say
have
to
a
these
sense of
people
what
that
your
get them in
stump
line.
speech is going to sound like, Sanjeeva. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. I can't
I'm
wait till
looking
you run
forward
for
to it.
Congress. Man. All right. Well, I appreciate the
Thanks,
call,
man.
buddy. Wow. I don't remember Sanjeeva ever swearing.
Well, I wonder if Sanjeeva's been influenced by Tom Perez. I've praised Tom Perez for starting to swear in his stump speeches. Maybe.
Rick Fain, did Trump appoint somebody to run the show today? It's running like a fine-tuned machine. Uchiwali. Another unintended consequence of the AHCA was personal bankruptcies have dropped in half since it was enacted. the consequences of the ACA. Is that right? Personal bankruptcies have dropped in half. CPW. We make a note to just, I want to look that up because I was wondering about that myself as I was saying it. Just made a pledge to Majority Report Patreon. Oh, thank you. Listen live on YouTube, Red, every day anyway, so I couldn't justify cost, but I'll happily go without coffee once or twice a month if it means contributing even just a little bit. I appreciate that. That is very, very kind of you. Guys have given me free years of free entertainment at this point. You keep me engaged, active, and motivated, especially after that email you read yesterday. On behalf of all of us YouTube freeloaders, don't change a thing. The show is great. I will, however, be emailing you a list of all the other podcasts I like more than yours, along with my credentials, which I assure you are very impressive. Thank you. Ken, several people have recommended that you talk to Warren Molzler. I'll add that. He has a unique way of explaining MMT and is one of his inventors. He has a deep understanding of the Federal Reserve and monetary policy. Also, check out his ebook, 7 Deadly Innocent Frauds of Economic Policy. Will you write that down, Molzler? Yeah. Justin Amash, M. DeWitt. Justin Amash, my rep from North Grand Rapids, Michigan, supported AHCA bill and needs a strong candidate challenge him. Also, Whirlpool Trust Fund baby, Fred Upton. Helped with this bill, represents Kalamazoo, Michigan. He needs to be challenged. My wife was born in Kalamazoo. Also, Justin Amash is held on town hall meetings outside of GR and week on days.
My wife.
If we could get more coverage on the emergency manager bill passed by Governor Rick Snyder and how it affected Flint's water, the negligence of the Republicans in Michigan. Michigan is going the way of Kansas, indeed. Topher Pattern. Sadly, my rep couldn't make it to the vote yesterday. His name is Dan Newhouse, but he released a statement congratulating his colleagues on passing the bill. He missed the vote for a totally unironic reason that his wife is undergoing serious cancer treatment. But even people on his Facebook are afraid to call him out for his hypocrisy. Maybe Ronald Reagan can call in and roast him on the show.
A scumbag.
Michael, stop tweeting. Revaccinations and autism.
You said that on Mike? Oh, my God. Jesus.
I second everything you said, but I want to add, me and my younger brother are both on the spectrum. I'm a happily married father with a perfectly normal son. I balance work and school and family as well as anyone else. My bro is a little less social than me, but has lots of friends, a long-time girlfriend, and is on his way to master's in microbiology. Now, I'm incredibly skeptical of Big Pharma in general, and as a parent, I understand scrutinizing medical decisions. But the idea that people would endanger their kids and everyone else's kids based on an unfounded fear that their children might turn out like me and my brother is deeply over-the-top offensive, and it's not a point I ever hear raised. I know not everyone on the spectrum is as high-functioning as me or him, but autism isn't an effing death sentence. We're not space aliens. It's a different neurological state of being. It's a crucial part of who I am. I wouldn't change it for anything. My personality, my talents, my sense of humor didn't come out of a damn syringe full of mercury. Louise Rees.
It's a fair point. I haven't heard somebody articulate that before.
Guys, repeal of ACA is just part of the Jimmy Dore and TYT revolution. You're all overreacting as if people are going to die when their health care is taken away.
I think you should stop overreacting and look at how this is going to look for Jill Stein in the 2020 campaign. All signs are pointing towards a Green New Deal, which frankly I'm pretty proud of voting for.
Green means go.
Green means go. Frankly, if you really want to blame somebody, you could blame fucking Cory Booker. He said something on CNN the other day that was annoying.
Nicola Negroid, as a member and a Patreon, I'm wondering if I can tag along on the Faso stakeout and, God willing, the subsequent Kelly face punch. Lisa lost her name. Steve Mnuchin looks like a Muppet. And when he talks, I want to punch him in the face. Actually, I feel that way about most of Trump's cabinet. MR member, that was a hilarious reenactment of Mulvaney's teleconference at the start of show with Cliff. Afterglow. About Max Blumenthal. A few years ago, he was whipping up anti-Assad imperial war drive, lying about U.S., Israel, Saudi Israel not being complicit in the creation of ISIS and other jihad. And now he's completely changed his spots and claiming to be anti-imperialist. I think he's full of shite. As recently as 2 years ago, he was calling those head chopping, mostly foreign mercs in Syria rebels, saying and spent years saying it was grassroots legitimate revolution. Now he's rebranded himself. You got to send me some of those links. There have been some very focused analysis of his shtick on Twitter. It's a form of liberal left posturing, ultimately to serve deep state objective. It's a long story.
That's a little wacky. No, I think what Sam.
And before you object,
yes,
there were real protests in 2011, but they were immediately co-opted by violent Al Qaeda types. CIA was involved from the very beginning. It's such an old playbook. But he's saying this same thing.
Yeah, that's what we're all saying.
Syria is a socialist state, which is not to be tolerated.
Oh, stop. No, Assad does not run a socialist state. That's
so wait,
ludicrous.
you agree with what he's saying now, but you think he's saying it for nefarious
to
reasons.
benefit the deep state.
Send me an email on that. I'll read it just because it sounds sort of intriguing. But I'm going to do this while I listen to it, while I read it. Okay. I love taunting, the taunting in the House. Dems showed spirit, defiance in the face of superior numbers. For 31 seconds, the House sounded like Parliament. I am shocked. Did Republicans drop the job-killing part of their Obamacare talking point? It's no longer job killing. Is job killing better or worse than people killing? Death camps for Kulaks. Sam, my texting in to wish a happy 199th birthday to my man, Mr. Santa Claus himself, Karl Marx. Well, sure, we'll give him a little. The proletariat in America may lack class consciousness in a party, but I'm still hopeful for the transgendered communist uprising that guy was talking about yesterday. Having a great weekend. Real nice job with the show earlier. Analog Studio. Dear Kelly, Matt, Michael, and Sam, I had to put on some Samba classics, fire up an old Spin Doctors tape in a boombox, and don't have to resurrect my MySpace account to figure out AOL Instant Messenger just to say I block out my schedule every day when I hear Industrially Ravage. I refuse to take meetings between 11 and 1:30 because my daily dose of the Majority Report may be the closest thing to preventive health care at this point. Also, I forgot to mention I became a member 2 months ago. I'll give you those. Forgetting probably had something to do with the vodka diet I was on in mid-January. I understand. Keep doing what you're doing. There's a special kind of stupid in the air these days, and such educational information, reflection, discussion, a dash of editorial progressive spice accented with dad. Hello? And yeah, not Tiffany is truly unique. Also, P.S.
Yeah, not Tiffany.
I live in a blue dot in a sea of red state in the state of Missouri. Whatever the shakedown is with this death care bill, since they didn't expand Medicaid in the state of Missouri, low-income people and elderly folk are screwed even more.
He gets so upset when he sees Tiffany. Let me tell you. Believe me.
I read an article about Tiffany the other day where she appeared in public, and so we know she's not like dead or jailed like Melania was. She's going to law school. That was the gist of it.
Dad.
So boring.
Cowboy butts drive me nuts. Sam, given the wet winter, do you have any good apple recommendations? I've noticed the strawberries are enormous this year in California. It's going to be a good year. It's going to be a good year. I can tell it right now. Sam, I am. Look, I think people know I'm partial to the Arkansas Black, even though that is not the best eating apple, as people will say. It's a good keeping apple, and it's not ready until like well into October. I got to say, Honeycrisps are tough to beat. Honeycrisp are really tough to beat.
Honeycrisps are great.
I mean, they're a little bit Johnny-come-lately.
You like Empire? You like those apples?
Empire's okay. If I'm going to go with an apple like an Empire, I'm going to go with a wine sap.
What's happening right now?
Sap, right.
But I'll tell you, if you want a good summer apple, and I know people, they stick their nose up a little bit with a green apple, but the pristine, those like those hard candies. What are they called? The little square, like the rectangle hard candies.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Jolly Ranchers?
Yeah.
This is what I mean. Can I just make a point real quick? It's so interesting when I find out the siloed, like vast seas of knowledge on one weird-ass topic.
Well, I don't know anything about Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah, I know.
The green apple flavor.
Yeah, so what was the green apple? Yeah.
The green apple flavor on Jolly Rancher?
Yes.
I think is based on the pristine apple. And I think it's available in it is an apple that's available in, at least in these parts, in zone 5A.
I would just like to take this up. Well, oh no, sorry, you're still extolling the The virtues of the pristine apple.
Pristine. Look for it. Look for it.
I would just like to apologize to everybody with some of the stress of today's show. I was totally remiss in not doing at least a 5-minute Sam routine about having hemorrhoids in Australia and taking advantage of their medical service. I apologize.
I didn't have hemorrhoids.
I know, but that has been messaged to me as something that I should have been all over, and I agree.
Earlier
I
thing
apologize.
that got messed up, it was me.
I can't believe it. I didn't.
It was.
Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy too. Yeah, I got to see that.
Hello, mate.
Okay, calling from a 651 area code. 651.
Hi, this is Chris Lapaco. Yes, the Chris Lapaco.
Oh,
and I just
thank you for pointing that out because
I
I was afraid that it was a Chris Lapaco, and if it wasn't the Lapaco, I wouldn't have talked to him.
That other guy's an asshole. Don't listen to him.
I know.
Hey, I just want to mention apple pears. I don't know if they're really apples or pears, but they're delicious, and they seem like an apple, and they taste like a pear.
I've never heard of that.
So. Look them up. They're great. They're actually like Asian pears or something
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
Anyway.
Those are very good. Asian pears, yes.
So,
yep.
Very delicious.
Let's make deal.
And I want to say, I like how you guys have been fighting lately, because it's kind of like every day you don't know who's going to get in an argument, you know? Kind of like when my mom used to hit my dad, and it's like, I know you guys will be okay afterwards, but it just kind of scares me at the time, but it's fun. And speaking of domestic violence, congrats to Mika and Joe. I just want to say I'm really happy they got engaged. But I want to tell Mika, if she's listening, the first time that Joe hits you, you grab Mark Halperin, you grab Mike Barnacle, and you get the hell out of there, okay? Because
you really think that Barnacle will get in the way of that? I don't think so.
I don't know. He'll be over there copying some article or something. Anyway, hey, the real reason I called in today, though, is there's a bill in Minnesota that they're trying to pass right now that here, give me 1 second here. I'll just read this. I hate reading stuff on the phone, but whatever. House File 600 would prevent any local government from passing ordinances that provide working people paid sick days, paid family leave, or raise the minimum wage. So basically, Minneapolis is trying to say, you have to have paid sick days.
Right. This is what we saw. This is what we saw in North Carolina. Right. This is the hate bill that prevented Charlotte from having home rule in terms of transgender housing and whatnot, or what they call the bathroom bill or whatnot. It was also a rule propagated by the state to prevent places like Charlotte from raising their minimum wage. This is, like this stuff, and it's not a coincidence. This is all like ALEC stuff, the American Legislative Exchange Council. This is all stuff that just permeates and percolates through these things. And it just is a perfect example of, and these are probably laws, literally that law, I bet you, was written, the model law of that was written years and years and years ago, and it's been floating around in ALEC, and they just basically roll them out when they think there's a good opportunity, and it's an indication of what direction Minnesota is heading in, and it's a problem.
Absolutely. Well, go ahead. Yeah, and then, you just see it on the federal level. People voted against Trump. He didn't win the popular vote, but whatever. Then, you go to the state level and they're taking over all the state houses. And then so we finally say, on the local level, please let us have a little sanctuary. They're like, no, limited government, my ass. We're coming in. We're taking over. So that's on Governor Dayton's desk right now, or it's going to be there soon. Anyway, he isn't sure if he's going to veto it because he doesn't like the cities being able to give a higher minimum wage than the state. So I would like people to call Governor Dayton and tell him to veto that legislation.
People got to get on
it.
Call the governor.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Call Governor Dayton.
Seriously, he's supposed to be pretty progressive.
Calling from a 518 area code. 518 area code. You're calling from.
Yes, I'm here.
Are you in John Fasso's district?
Yep, Paul Tatanco's as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I had 3 questions. I wanted to know what you guys think about Trump Care reaching the Senate? Because I read an article today that said that the Senate's not even refuses to vote on it. Basically, they're refusing to vote on it.
No.
And I'm thinking, like, maybe are they refusing it for now, or are they just doing it until 2018 and then they're gonna fuck us then?
Look, I don't think they're not going to vote on that same bill. They're going to come up with their own bill, and then they're going to go to conference, and then they're going to hammer out a bill. So,
Well, do you think the Dems will have any chance of getting anything they want in it, or
No.
is it just going to be like, you think it's going to be strictly GOP?
Strictly GOP.
Damn. Oh man, that's gonna suck.
Yeah.
So all right. So Joe Faso voted for it. He's an asshole. He always has been. But so is there anybody else in like the Tri-County area that possibly could flip Faso's view on things, or do you think that's just completely?
I think. Listen,
null and
I
void?
think if Faso's constituents hammer him big time over this, I think when it comes back to the House, it's conceivable he would vote against
The
it.
goal has to be Kerry. You got to that's the famous Kerry thing that screwed him up. I voted for it before I voted against it. Like I mean, I know I agree with you. They already took the hit for voting for it once, but maybe I don't know. I mean, it's worth putting as much pressure on them as possible.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Appreciate
it, guys.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the call.
And tell her that she should definitely beat up Faso. By the way.
Okay, I'll tell her.
Because a woman beating up the GOP would hurt their ego majorly.
That's true. That's a good point. Hey, her. Calling from a 617 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Kathy Watkins. I'm calling from Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Hello, Kathy. What's on your mind?
Hi. Well, I wanted to talk about the caps that insurance used to put on, and now likely will again.
Yep.
I had a niece in Virginia, and she had cystic fibrosis. Her father was a driver for Frito-Lay Corporation, that potato chips, Fritos, all those things, and they had $1 million cap on their insurance. Well, she went through that pretty quickly as a child, and she needed a lung transplant and didn't have the money for it. So they started putting cans in things, in convenience stores to raise money for her. And the local fire department was playing softball games to raise money, all sorts of things like that.
Wow.
But, you just can't raise that much money that way. Then someone stole one of her cans from a convenience store. It was caught on film, and so the local news picked it up that, someone was stealing money from this poor sick child. And so then people saw it on the news, and they started donating. So she did get the money. Unfortunately, with that kind of transplant, you have to be sick enough but not too sick. And by the time she was sick enough, she was so sick she died. So, I mean, that was a very, very tragic ending. But, $1 million cap, it was just crazy,
Yeah, that's horrible. I mean, that's horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope I guess it was your cousin or was it your niece?
It was my niece.
I mean, I hope your brother or your sister, I mean, this is a story that people need to be educated on. I mean, one of the hardest things about the politics around healthcare, and I think there's certainly been a lot more awareness. One of the hardest things about one of the hardest things about the healthcare debate is that, I don't know what the percentage of people whose experience was like your niece's, and who blow through that cap. But people don't realize there were caps there, and nobody knows if they're going to be the one who blows through that cap. And those stories are really important to get out there, I think. And I mean, I think that they're really poignant and they're important for people to understand, because it's the only way to sort of really express to people what the patient protection part of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act did was it made sure that insurance actually functioned the way it was supposed to. And most people through most of their life are not in a position to know whether or not their insurance was good prior to, the Affordable Care Act. And
right, and you think working for a large corporation like that, but they probably gave a different insurance to the drivers than they did to their corporate executives.
Without a doubt. And here's the thing. Even if you're in a state now, right, that, and you use the example of Frito-Lay, and they had a $1 million cap. Even if you're in a state that has laws that doesn't take this waiver, they can basically now, and I explained this yesterday, but I'll explain it again. There was a waiver that was put in that really helped this bill get through, because it basically said, presumably, well, in red states, probably states that rejected the Medicaid, they can have a waiver, and they can also waive the requirement for pre-existing conditions, waive the requirement for essential health benefits, waive the requirement to have an absence of lifetime and annual caps. When the Affordable Care Act passed, the differences between states became much less relevant because there was a baseline that was federal. And so the walls between states, if you were a company incorporated in Massachusetts, you could still, you could say, we're going to base our insurance requirements on Maine's because it's slightly different. But there was a baseline, and so the federal government didn't care. Well, that baseline is going to be gone now. And if Alabama gets a waiver and Frito-Lay finds that in Alabama you can put in any type of lifetime cap or annual cap you want, they're just going to run it through that state. And so this is going to be a bigger problem, a much bigger problem. But I appreciate you telling us the story, and I hope you tell that story more, and I hope your niece's parents do too. And I'm sorry for your loss, but it's
sure.
Tragic story.
Okay, thanks, Sam.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's what they just voted for. Yep. Have a hell of a lot more of that.
Calling from a 605 area code. And it's conceivable that big businesses, well, first of all, because insurance is more expensive than it was 5 or 6 years ago, just because of the trajectory of the thing. There's a lot more Wall Street pressure, right, for profits. And because now of this waiver, even if I had to be in a state that didn't allow these type of things, I can now opt before. And so I think you're going to see even more companies do it than before the Affordable Care Act.
Without a doubt.
You calling from a 605 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yo, this is the Disco Stew calling from Minnesota.
What's Disco Stew?
Yeah. What's going on, guys? Wanted to call and say thanks for the show. Appreciate it. Also, appreciate Lepaco. I'll definitely be following up with Governor Dayton. But I had an observation and then sort of a question, too. Like, a lot of the famous people on the conservative side are famous, or, like, they're leaders, but they're famous for being conservative. Like, Rush Limbaugh. Like, what did he actually do? Nothing, right? And then if you look at the left, it's people who are professors or who are whatever. Chomsky or Robert Reich, right? So part of, I think, our problem is that people who would be good leaders are too busy doing other things, right? Like, they're not running for things, they're not doing things because they're professors, because they're whatever. And I guess my question, or like one quick thing, is like, why the hell don't you ever run?
Why don't who? Me?
You. Yeah, you. Like, you would be a good candidate. You understand this stuff. Like, why don't you?
Hello, everyone.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like, there are times where I think, like, and I see that thing with Faso. I'm like, if there's nobody running, I mean, if I was, there was a time, if I had spent my whole life in Worcester, maybe I'd run. But of course, Jim McGovern's the best congressman, one of the best congressmen in the country already. There's no upgrade. But I'd contemplate it. I mean, if there was, you don't want to go into a district and be a carpetbagger, and but.
And then I just had one other thing. It's kind of a question.
Yeah.
Particularly for new Matt or Kelly if they're there. So like I'm mixed race, and my white half of the family is, extremely Trump supporting. And like since the election, I basically said I'm just not talking to you guys. I haven't gone to any holidays. I don't intend to go to any holidays. And I don't know. Like, am I being dramatic? But at the same time, the further and the deeper this shit gets, the less I can forgive it. Like the less that, I can look past people who helped raise me, who babysat me, supporting a fucking Nazi. And then also like the real world consequences, like this healthcare bill. Like I can't get past it. And I just don't know. Like I know Matt is from sort of, the Midwest. That's where I'm at. So I'm sure he's got similar stuff. And I'm just curious, like, what do you guys think?
Well, Matt isn't here today. I know who voted for Trump in my family as well. And no, I don't avoid them. I like my family, and it doesn't match with how I think about them. I think that it's for like financial and then possibly other people misunderstanding things,
I mean, you have an opportunity to go in and destabilize the coalition. And I think if
I've said something before. I've just asked about it, and it turned into...
It's a long-term project. That's the thing. I mean, it's
right.
like, look, this is what I would say, is that family is important. It would suck to completely lose touch with a big part of your family, but
it's
I
not
can certainly
worth it over that. Like,
well,
unless
I don't know.
they just are awful in general, and like this is the last straw.
I mean, I don't know if it's not worth it, but I would say
change
this.
their minds.
Yes, that if you look at it as more of like a project and to, sort of a long-term project to destabilize the coalition, you can actually sort of feel like, you're doing something, that you should be doing anyways, right? We should be destabilizing support for Donald Trump. And B, you can have the side benefit of still maintaining relations, even though you're doing it, even though you're involved in a different project at that moment. I mean, if you can't emotionally, distance yourself in that way, then I would just maintain your sanity. I mean, that's I don't know what else.
If there's a bunch of problems to begin with, see, that's the thing. The people I'm talking about, I already got along with them. So
it reminds me of my new book. So your family's full of libtards. A guide to dealing with the cucks in your life.
All right, one more phone call, and then I'll take up some IMs. I'm sorry, other callers.
Yes, Rachel.
You're calling from a 770 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Samuel.
Oh, I'm going to be short with this.
Gorka.
Yes, you got to be quick.
You got to
You get one joke, Gorka.
I'm sorry about the alpha male healthcare plan that passed the other day. I know, considering that you have the pre-existing condition of being a Jew.
He won.
That's good.
Well done.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Love you.
All right. That was worth it.
That was the best call ever.
That was pretty good.
A solid joke. Okay, bye.
There's something wrong with you guys.
That was great.
That was pretty good.
That was a good joke. I was wondering, as soon
pressure.
as he said pre-existing condition, I knew that he could do nothing but succeed.
Sam, I am. Kelly, what's your number? My credentials exceed both Sam and Michael's in several key areas of interest to you, Kelly. I hold a significant position in one of the top 3 companies in an industry you care about. I don't know.
He's making fun of the email again. It's getting a lot of legs.
Abika Bauer. Regarding the call from Ontario, who's an expert in the Civil War, does he have a podcast, blog, or Twitter handle you can share? I'm always fascinated with the knowledge he shares with us. Not that I know, but we'll look for one. Bend over. Samuel, sir, the word darkies in Swanee River is not about black people. Stop being such a reactionary SJW and not even investigating before becoming outraged. I will check that out. Colin Doucet, I really want Sam to stream video game playthroughs. God damn it, stop fucking camping, you goddamn sniper. These goddamn Mountain Dews and Doritos aren't good for me. Are we completely sure that the email yesterday wasn't Sam just being extremely passive-aggressive? I think Trump might be like a sociopathic toddler version of Tom Hanks in Big. I just aced all my finals. Can I get a shofar? Good job. Whoa, we got a lot of IMs. All right, Michael, give me a letter. We'll do 4 rounds.
F.
F. Oh, Kelly, you don't have to do it. Film Fest guy. Isn't existence a pre-existing condition? Yeah. Kelly.
T.
TJ Cornflake. It's a shame Hillary is too busy joining the resistance to actually resist or even say a single word about Trump care.
Russia.
Cookie for Mo. I know 2020 is a long way off, but will Trump even win his primary? And wouldn't it be safe for a GOP rep to vote no and simply say, I cannot vote on a bill I did not read? Yeah, I guess.
No.
But not. Michael.
E.
Greg. The waiver is not for Medicare recipients, so America's graying population over 65 will not be angry. This is a big political factor for Republicans.
Greg, I will literally murder you.
Kelly.
I hate you so much.
S.
Sam's de minimis. Why aren't we talking more about the end of capitalism in a broader sense? It seems like this is driving all the austerity and regressive policies of not just the U.S., but of the entire global power structure. It's the whole I've got mine, now I'm building my bunker mentality we've seen in practically every ruling class policy, from environment to energy to fiscal policy on down. I know, big topic for such a small penis. Cat. Rep Lighton is also on the Intelligence Committee, CIA Subcommittee, and Cybersecurity Committee. I wonder what exactly she did, when exactly she decided to retire. Can you tell me where you got that factoid about $3 billion in Social Security savings because of death before collect? I think it's on page 33. Off the top of my head, it's either 31 or 33 of the CBO scoring for the last version of ACHA. Nothing beats a pink lady apple. Those are pretty good.
Those are great. Very partial to those.
Go ahead.
A.
A square. Sam, sorry this is long today. For form, I think the parallel type ad good, but should exclude the phrase stop Trump. For strategy and think the veneer is off, and Dems should say the Republicans make Americans sick and poor agenda. The mendacity on display this week. Today, I have no patience for these mostly white men who call you with this conscience vote BS. I'm one of those lucky ones in grotesque healthcare lottery we have going on in this country, but I have seen a friend die literally because he had no insurance, chose death over leaving his family saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Sorry to hear that. So today it's a painful, sad, and embarrassing day in the United States of America. Shame. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the one thing I would say in Virginia, going anti-Trump as opposed to GOP, if it's a purple state like that, it might make more sense in the short term.
Well, I'm just tired of voting for corporate Democrats.
Kelly.
H. Or as they say in Britain, H.
Happy canoe. Exactly. Why would a child on the autism spectrum be worse than watching a child die of totally preventable disease like whooping cough? Perspective, people.
Another one?
Yep.
B.
Be silly. Saul Rosenberg voice. Hello? I said, hello, Clifford. Oh, God damn it. Why do I have everything around here?
Cliff.
Oh, I'm coming back there. Ouch. I hit my knee. Oh, Jesus. I forgot the mixing board has Matt Scoy germs all over the boobs on the knobs. Oh, I'm going to need the sanitizer. I knew I should have just stayed home with my Twitter to do the trolling at that evil Schecter from the Heritage Foundation. Stupid privatization of Social Security and Medicare. Where's my other slacks? I think I'm bleeding. Kelly, go ahead.
Captured your essence.
Kelly.
C.
see. Circus. Where's Susan Sarandon's revolution? I thought it was immediate. I think we probably have another couple of months before that kicks in. No bagol. Long-time listener, usually during work on YouTube hours after the show is done, but thanks for making me more informed than I ever have been on healthcare. I agree with you and Cliff that this is an easy thing to campaign against, or at least I would if I didn't have to rely on the Democrats. Respect life is all about making sure people get care until they are born. Everything else is up to the person. Check out the podcast, The Dollop. They did a pretty good couple episodes on the busing riots in Boston. I know Dave Anthony. He's been on this program. We should have him on soon, too. Okay, one more round.
Aye. Jay.
Wait, I love Sam Seder. I thought I was listening to the Majority Report, not the Apple Report. Kelly. One more, Nick. You guys play the clip of Bernie on Hayes laughing at Trump healthcare in the U.S.? Yes, we did. It made me smile. Can Michael do an impression of Sam in Australia getting water in his ear and it getting infected while praising the healthcare system they have?
Oh, my God, mate. You have the most amazing healthcare I've ever seen. Ow, my ear hurts. I'm so frustrated. I'm going to have another goddamn temper tantrum, but I'm going to soothe myself by appreciating your Medicare for All system before I go whine and tantrum. Thanks, mate.
You got to say something like, and put a shrimp on the barbie.
Put a shrimp on the barbie. Isn't that, ow? It hurt my
All right.
face.
Final I am of the week comes from Beefy Richard. Your studio has an interesting technical setup. Watch the British comedy series Black Books if you haven't seen it. Devil's Advocate background sound for Kelly, mixing the looped beginning of Slaves Shall Serve with the intro of Celtic Frost Morbid Tales album. See you next week. He was literally twittering while we were doing that.
Literally.
Caught